Janine, I start.
Mr. Cavallini,
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
Mr. Leonard,
Here.
Mr. DeGenini,
Here.
Mr. Arvana,
Here.
Mr. Walter,
Here.
Mr. Hurst,
Here.
Chairwoman Decker.
I'm here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the township clerk, sent to the Burgersville News and the Courier News and to all subscribers, and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 6, 2022.
Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
Republic for which it stands.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
Justice
justice
for all.
I will open it up to the public to see if anyone has any comments that are not on the agenda. Or questions, anything that?
If you are online and you want to either virtually raise your hand or just announce who you are. If you have any comments. No, does not look.
No, doesn't look like anyone has any comments. Okay, then we will close it to the public. We have our minutes from July 7th that we need to approve. They've been corrected and are ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Was
I'm
everyone abstaining?
Abstain.
We have some abstentions here. Okay, minutes are approved. We also have our minutes from August 11th. If anyone can make a motion for that.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstention.
Abstain.
Rich and Steve were here. Tim and Steve, I mean. So minutes are approved. Okay. We have our, well, we can talk about that later. Let's go right into our hearing.
The AT&T resolution.
Oh, did I miss it? Did I miss it on here? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I missed the resolution.
I'm surprised our phones aren't all ringing.
Yes, right. I did miss the resolution for AT&T. So if we need a motion for the approval of the resolution,
I'll make the motion.
do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Tim seconding. Okay, roll call, Janine.
Okay. Mr. Travellini,
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez, you're abstaining, correct? No, you were part of AT&T. I'm
No,
sorry.
he was-
No, he had to
He's recused.
abstain.
You were
Recused.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Start again. Mr. Travellini with an aye. Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
you're abstaining, Lou.
I'm recused.
Yes.
I mean, I've read the resolution,
Did you listen to the recording?
I did listen to the report.
It was only one night, so yes, we may vote, but you do have to provide a certification to me that you listened to the recording. But I believe you, and you will do that, and you can vote.
I will do all of those things. Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Chairwoman Bishop.
Aye. Resolution is approved. Okay. Now we can go to our application for tonight, and that is 1525 Bedminster. And this is a zoning issue.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. James Turtle, Turtel, from the Turtle Law Firm LLC. Tonight, on behalf of the applicant 1525 Bedminster LLC. Tonight, we have an application for this board, basically do the same thing that's going on now. This, we believe, is a very benign change to the property, necessary. We were here tonight under the D2 provisions. Mr. Land use law. What we're seeking to do is convert 4 of the bays right now where they had lifts that would take service the cars and this is the property 15.5 Route 206, and we go to the property itself. It's the Shell gas station, which currently has on it the Shell gas station, the Dunkin' Donuts, as well as the 8-bay garage, which is right now currently. The application is to reutilize the 8-bay garage with some modifications to it, which would necessitate this. And the modifications are going to be to remove the hydraulics that are in there have been moved. There'll be placement of 4 pits, so one pit will be able to accommodate 4 bays to repair vehicles from underneath. Instead of putting a car on a lift, we will repair it from underneath. Again, repairs were going on before, repairs are going to go on afterwards. In addition, there'll be 3 additional bays where you will still have lifts. The hydraulic lifts are on with the regular above ground lifts, but they'll be able to have service cars there as well. This is going to be done by a Jiffy Lube franchise, which has really everything else is going to stay the same in terms of the use inside of the building. Outside of the building, you will see changes, but good changes. You're going to see a lot less. There's going to be no overnight or maybe an occasional one car that might stay in the garage overnight. Really, this operation is like to take cars in and send them out at the same day within about 15 minutes or half an hour. Do an oil change or a lube job. You'll hear testimonies to how this will operate. But instead of having cars that are coming in and staying possibly for days and using up that whole back row of parking spaces, which is probably familiar with, instead of having tow trucks coming in and out of the site, which again, as I read through the prior resolutions, there was a concern, the limitation on the one tow truck. There won't be tow trucks here. This is going to be where someone drives their car in, gets their car serviced, and leaves. So minimal use of the parking area, although we do meet the requirements for parking for the site of use. We'll have a minimal amount of parking that's going to be used. It won't be the same type of overnight parking. And we think this will be a dramatically less impact on the surrounding area. Because you won't be exposed. The cars are going to come in, the cars are going to go out, and that's it. You're not going to see a lot of the other things around. The amount of tires that were stored, we're not going to do the same kind of tires that are out there. The overall uses are completely less than that. But it's going to be the same building, the same systems that are in our store. The engineer letter, there are questions about testimony on it, how the oil is going to be delivered, the way the products can come in, the way it's going to go out. It's all there. Right now, there are tanks there, and where they bring the oils in, and they are fed into the automobiles. The waste tanks that are there now, it's all going to be the same operation. It just handled a different way. The core of these is going to be a pit. The reason why I call it a pit area instead of basement is that this is going to be less than 6.5 feet. Under your ordinance, it's less than 6.5 feet. Right? Doesn't count as that area, floor area of the building. So this is designed so we don't increase even the floor area of the building under your ordinance. And it's going to be therefore the same amount of square footage doing the same. In order to further educate you and have you understand this application, tonight I have several witnesses with us. In speaking with Mr. Collins, my proposal would be in discussion with Mr. Collins is to have all the witnesses sworn at the beginning of the proceeding. So that way, if this board has a question, member of the public has a question during the testimony, we won't have to get them sworn in, we can do all of that stuff. My witnesses tonight are going to be James Henry. He's a civil engineer. He also has a planning background, but he's here tonight to discuss the engineering of the project. We have Kamlesh Shah, who is here tonight. He is going to be our architect. If there are any architectural questions, we might have. The building is going to stay the same. The design is going to stay the same. The cases are the architectural questions you might have with Mr. Shah. Nicholas Verderisi, who's a traffic expert, will be talking about traffic differentials here. Even though they are the same uses, there's a slight modification in the criteria that's used to evaluate the amount of traffic to the site, which we believe has minimal impact. But Mr. Verderisi will be here to testify to what that impact is and answer any questions with that, as well as a lot of questions about circulation. Mr. Henry and Mr. Verderisi will be able to testify to those issues as well. We also have John McDonough, who's a professional planner, who will be able to give you the planning rationale for the relief we're seeking here tonight. And we also have finally Don Hill. Donald Hill is with Jiffy Lube, he came up from Texas for this hearing tonight to answer any of your operational questions, whether you have employees, car service. He has a wealth of experience and background, not only in this area, but how these operations work throughout the country. And our hope is, at the end of the night, you'll see it's missing. It's just really more of the same, but hopefully a much better delivery, and a much lesser impact on the area. And hopefully you'll see is an improvement to the site itself before it operates. So with that introduction, Mr. Collins, if we could get our witnesses sworn tonight, and then we'll get Mr. Howard to start testimony.
Yes, gentlemen who will be testifying, please come to the mic. And please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
And starting on my left, your right, please state your names and addresses and spell your names, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is John McDonough, MC, capital DONOUGH, and I'm the project planner. My business address is 101 Gibraltar Drive, over in Parsippany, New Jersey.
Nicholas Verderisi, Verderese. I'm the project's traffic engineer, 1904 Main Street, Lake Como, New Jersey.
My name is Kamlesh Shah, first name Kamlesh, it's Kamlesh, last name Shah, SHAH. I am the project architect of record. Business address is 1 Liberty Way, Cranberry, New Jersey, 08512.
And James Henry, I'm the site civil engineer, HENRY, last name, of Dynamic Engineering Consultants. We're based in, my address is 1904 Main Street, Lake Como, New Jersey. But locally, we also have an office in Rochester.
Hi, good evening. My name is Don Hill, chief of the franchisee, company's Premium Velocity Auto LLC. From Houston, Texas, address 13626 Conley, CONPLY.
Thank you, gentlemen. You may be seated, and we'll just confirm for the record that Mr. Henry, Mr. Verderese, Mr. McDonough have all previously testified here and have been qualified in their expert areas. The architect, when he testified, should provide his qualifications.
But I do thank you, Mr. Collins, for having accepted the basis.
Yes, of course.
And one side, Mr. Hill, although he should use actually his original Chatham, New Jersey.
Okay.
So, happy to do that.
Local.
Please don't worry about it. If I could, Mr. Henry, if you could please, right now, give the board an overview of the property as it stands today and what the proposal is to do this.
Sure, I'm going to share my screen on Zoom. We want to mark this exhibit. It's going to be an aerial map exhibit dated today's date, 9/8/2022. I'll share it on screen. One second.
Yep, that'll be A1.
Although the scheme by is the same aerial shot that was provided.
Yes, it's just a colorized version.
If you could then you just review the board property and what's there.
Sure, the parcel ID is identified on the borough, on the town's tax map as block 22, lot 44. It's 1525 Route 206 at the intersection of Langton Road, which is a county road. On this exhibit, it's indicated, the property line is indicated in yellow and north is facing up on the screen. In a dashed line, we've outlined the 200-foot property owners list around the outside. The parcel size is approximately 1.29 acres. And existing zoning, it's in the OR research zone. As you can see, just beyond the adjacent parcel is where the R2 zone is. And then across 206 is where the VN zone starts. The existing use, I'm going to go to the survey, which was previously submitted, so I don't believe that has to be marked.
No, it does not.
This is a survey that was submitted, it's prepared by DBK Consulting, and it's dated 8/22/2012. This survey basically identifies the existing conditions on site. The existing use on site is a gas station, a Shell gas station. There's 4 pumps on site, and there's an existing tank, which has actually 2 tanks on site. There's one building which contains two different uses. It's partially used as a Dunkin' Donuts quick food establishment, which is a non-permitted use. I forgot to mention the gas station on site is also a non-permitted use. And there is an existing auto repair within the building as well. Under the existing conditions, there are 8 full-service bays. There's an interior office and waiting space inside the building. And right now it's vacant. The tenant left the property approximately about a year and a half ago, April 2021. Adjacent to the site, there's an existing office building to the north. To the south is Lamington Road. To the east is 206 with the bank across the street. And then to the west, the medical office building, if residential would be on. Under the existing conditions, there are 2 existing driveways of Route 206. There's a large driveway on near the gas station canopy, and then there's a right out driveway near the I guess it's the southeastern corner of the site. And on the southwestern corner of the site is a full movement access onto Lamington Road. As part of this application, really there's no modification to the access at all. We're maintaining, really aren't doing any sort of site improvements at all. So most of what I'm describing here is going to remain under the proposed conditions. So under the proposed conditions, basically all the existing uses are to remain. The main difference is that we are going to be adding a pit area underneath the existing auto repair. The reason we're adding a pit area is because for Jiffy Lube, they have a standard where they actually go, instead of lifting the car up, they go down a stair area and go underneath the car for quicker service. So the number of bays actually will be reduced because we're taking one of the bays and adding a stair area, which allows you to get down to the pit. And that pit area is not considered floor area ratio. It's not considered a part of that. It's not considered floor area, being that it's not considered habitable space. And our architect will get into that. In order for it to be considered habitable space, my understanding is that it has to be 6.5 feet high, and we'll be just under that for the proposed pit. The building itself, the first story is approximately 3,600 square feet. 180 square feet of that is used for the Dunkin', and the remaining is used for the auto repair. On the second floor, it's primarily used as storage, and there is a pit area that's going to be added approximately 1,000 square feet. Again, this does not count as gross floor area, being that it doesn't meet the height requirement.
And just to clarify for the board, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that will be an existing area that is just going to be basically lowered at the building, right? Reducing the size of the building or anything else, is that correct?
Correct. There's no exterior improvements. This is an interior improvement only. I forgot to enter in the second exhibit, which is going to be called A2. And it's a site plan rendering. And that's a site plan rendering dated 9/8/2022, prepared by Dynamic Engineering. This is more or less a model, basically a exhibit showing existing conditions. There is some minor signage which is being added around the existing building, basically to help facilitate the proposed Jiffy Lube. But by and large, the improvements that are on site are going to remain as is.
And the signage that you're referring to, is that directional signage?
Yes, they're all directional signage. The only sign that's being modified is there is an existing building sign which is being replaced in kind. So it's not being made any larger. On our application, when we originally submitted, Mr. Ferraro had mentioned, I think because of the size of the directional sign and the height off the ground, that it actually was going to count as building area. And speaking to our client, they're agreeing to reduce the size of the signage. I believe it's down to here. So 2 square feet max counts as directional signage. And as long as max height is 4 feet. So if you stay below the 2 foot requirement, the 4 feet height, I'll let your planner and Mr. Ferraro determine, but we're basically trying to say it's got no logos on it. All it is there's a sign basically for an enter here and an exit only on the bay. So really there's not really advertisement involved in it. It's more for safety, but we're agreeable to reduce those sizes down to 2 square feet. If that eliminates any sort of size variance that we might need. From a park, so just continuing on, overall, the building area is approximately 7,200 square feet. I mentioned one of the bays, we indicate on this exhibit, kind of dash it out. where the proposed stairway is going. And that stairway will go into a pit, which will then access 4 out of the 7 bays. So only 4 of them will be accessed by the pit, not all of them.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So where you have the pit, the car will pull in.
Yeah.
And then when the car's finished, it'll pull out or will it
No,
go
it's-
all the
it's
way
one
through?
direction. Yeah. The only one that you would pull out of is the one where you can't pull through because of the stairs. So I don't know if you can see my cursor in that area. So that one is primarily not going to be used. It may be used in talking to the Jiffy Lube representative today. We actually went inside today and he had mentioned that will really primarily be used just to check someone's air or, kind of maybe, fill up their windshield wiper fluid, whatever it might be. It's primarily not going to be used. The primary, the way they operate is you enter one side of the building and you exit out the other side of the building. And that's how they operate the business.
With all of the bays? You'll enter from one side and exit from the other
Yes,
side?
except for the one bay behind the stairs, which is primarily not going to be used.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I don't understand why you wouldn't have the floor plan.
I can pull up the floor plan. You want me to pull up the floor plan?
Yeah, that would help me understand how it works.
Sure. So this
I don't
exhibit,
remember there being 8 days across in there.
It's 4 and 4.
They're back to back.
Yeah. 4 in the front, 4 in
So
the
how
back.
does it? So you're servicing 2 cars at a time?
so this is referencing the architectural plan, which was previously submitted. So I don't believe it has to be
It doesn't have to be.
entered. It's proposed ground floor plan, pit section, SCH-2, dated May 15, 2022. And on this plan, you can see under the existing conditions, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 on each side of the building. And the one pit is being replaced with a stair area, or one of the bays is being replaced with a stair, which goes down to service the pit.
So you really only have 7 service areas.
Right, so we're
Except for
reducing.
the one where you use the air or whatever.
Right, and that's, again, goes to our argument that this is a reduction in impact. We never-
You do have 2 lifts.
There are 2 lifts and one of them will not have a lift. So there's the pit, 4 pit areas, 2 lifts, and then 1 that won't. In talking to Jiffy Lube today, this lift might actually get moved to bay 7. Just because he was discussing it today, he was saying that bay 5 is probably not going to be used very much.
So the pit is just over those first 4.
The 4 on the right-hand side, yeah, the closest to the lobby area. Because those are, so not to get into operation testimony yet, but basically about 80 to 90% of their business is oil changes. So that's why the
So you
important.
queue from the rear of the building?
So we're not queuing. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to have their customers park in 7 parking spaces, which were designated. As each car comes in, an employee goes out to the car, drives the car in, and then the oil change takes place. Then it gets driven out, and then the customer comes back and picks up the car.
The signage that you're modifying, does that either support or direct people how to access, et cetera? So all that is in support of operation.
Correct, yeah, it's just the signage we're adding is primarily on the building, it's just enter here, so you know what side to enter, and then exit only, just so you know you have to go back.
So you're entering from Lamington Road and coming in from the back of the building,
You're entering from, exactly, you're entering from
and only exiting from the front.
yes.
Not changing the access onto 208 at all?
No.
So maybe this is better for the operational experts. So right now, when you exit the bays,
Yes.
service bays, you overlap the access to the gas pumps.
Right, I'll go back to
There's
this.
only like a narrow little opportunity, I guess, to the right, there's some space, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so as you come out, I know you can see it in blue, I've kind of
So
indicated.
you're gonna make people go right as they come out.
So you're gonna come out and you can either make a right or you can go right onto 206 right here. So you come out and then go out.
If you could, Mr. Henry, if you could just point out where the canopy ends.
So-
just makes it-
Yeah, so
Is that one
the
way?
canopy,
Yeah, I want to just make sure, because a lot of people, right now, I believe they're using the Dunkin' Donuts. they try to go north on 206 from here,
Right,
and
which I'm not sure.
that's crazy.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Very.
Rush hour.
Seen it.
Okay, so directionally, we feed in from Lamington Road, we come in, park our cars, somebody comes out, grabs your car.
Right. So we've got 10-minute parking spaces on the rear where someone will park here, an employee will come out, get the car, bring it in for servicing.
So there's no queuing,
There's no queuing.
no idling.
Right.
Hot summer day, waiting for my car to get serviced. I'm a frequent user, or used to be, not so much anymore, frequent user of the Jiffy Lube down in Bridgeport.
Okay.
That's strictly a queuing operation.
Right.
I think they come and take your keys now from you and then they invite you to come inside, and sit down in an overcrowded waiting area when it's busy.
Right.
Saturday afternoon kind of thing. But there's no queuing here. I'm parking my car, handing my keys to somebody inside
Yes,
for the service.
right.
Still supposed to take less than a half an hour.
That's.
I'll talk to the operation. Okay. All right, I think I get it.
So as you're aware, I mean, so just kind of go over, parking on site. Let's see if I can hit everything real quick. Yeah, I think I did it. So parking on site, 9/18, we comply with the ordinance. From a parking perspective, the parking demand goes down, being that we're removing one of the parking bays. There was a slight, mistype on our site plan.
I'm sorry, you say you're removing one of the parking bays or you're removing one of the
Sorry,
service
one of
bays?
the service bays. So the parking demand goes down. Previously required, there was 40 parking spaces, and under proposed is 36. It's a slight deviation from what's indicated on the plans. As in looking at the previous approvals, 180 parking spaces, 180 square feet was allowed for the Dunkin' Donuts. Unfortunately, we put 190, it's 180, and we recalculated it. So 180 is what Dunkin' operates in. So we're recalculating it, it slightly varies. It really slightly reduces the parking demand by one space.
And
So-
just to be clear, there's no change in the Dunkin' operation.
There is not, it was a mis typo on our plans. So the parking demand reduces from 40 to 36 spaces. The existing parking, there's 44 spaces on site. 9 spaces basically are allocated to the Dunkin', 2 essentially are allocated to the gas station, and then 34 will be allocated to the Jiffy Lube, and 7 of those 34 will be indicated for 10-minute parking only, which is where they would pick up the cars instead of having them stacked on site. And then employees would pull cars to the repair bays. Generally speaking, like I mentioned, from an operational standpoint, these are, basically you service the car immediately, 30 minutes or so is the average wait time. There is not overnight parking. The previous operator had significant amount of vehicles that were parked on site overnight. This should be a lot cleaner operation where you shouldn't primarily will not have cars parked overnight on this property. At nighttime, basically this parking lot should be mostly empty.
Can you tell the plan back up?
Do you want the architectural plan or?
Yes.
Let's see. Okay.
So where's
The waiting room is the Dunkin' Donuts?
So waiting room, so the Dunkin' Donuts, the way it's calculated today is just the area where there's counter space. And this area outside of here is gonna be where.
we can't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Still saying sharing. Stop sharing, share. So there's an existing, basically auto repair office space, which is this area that you can see my cursor. That area is going to be utilized for waiting, and then there's counter spaces there already.
So I,
Where will people wait?
Tim's,
Will they wait in their cars or they're going to tell them to leave when they come in?
I'll let the Jiffy Lube kind of operations person go over that. My understanding that they'll be given the option that there will be no idling signs at each of the parking spaces. Try and
You can't enforce that.
encourage idling.
Mr. Shaw, the floor plan with the chairs on it someplace maybe?
yeah, the question I have on that is, there's only 2 chairs in there.
Well,
Most of it's taken up
let's wait.
by the refrigerators.
There are refrigerators on the right-hand side. Right now, I think, right now we're planning on opening utilizing this existing counter space.
How many
Potentially,
people can fit in that area?
right now, there's no seating at all. The reason we were, we wanted to make sure the board was in favor of seating inside. That's generally how Jiffy Lube operates, is that they will add seating inside and they're in favor of it. As long as the board is in favor of it,
My question is, how many seats could you fit there? Do you know?
Well, let's let the engineer do, and then we'll go to. the
Yeah,
architect.
I'll let the architect
Okay.
kind of answer that
You know,
question.
I have another question. You talked about the pits being for auto repair,
Yes,
but isn't 80 or 90% of your business auto maintenance, right?
right.
Oh, so it's
So-
not for auto repair.
Most of the auto repair that's gonna take place, like, this is not meant for major auto repair. That's another thing that's an improvement over existing conditions, is that you're not gonna have someone working on engines. That's not what we're doing here. We're gonna be doing, minor kind of maintenance on cars.
Well, but your 90% of the business is oil change, right? Which is maintenance, it's
Right.
not auto repair.
Correct.
Thank you.
The areas where the lift are is where the tire adjustment, wheel balancing.
And I'll let the Jiffy Lube person go into like what kind of things they do, but yes, that's my understanding.
Where's the lease line? Is somebody gonna tell us what part of the Dunkin' Donuts space is gonna be leased to whom?
It's
The
staying,
donuts will have, has the operational area in the back, which is from the counter to the rear. The rest, as you go into the area today, you have a couple of the.
I'm sorry, you have to, I apologize. I had to attend by Zoom. Could you talk a little more slowly?
Not a problem. So that right now, the area won't change that Duncan is using, which is the area, the counter space that you see in the back area there. They do have the couple of coolers that are on the right-hand wall as well, and that will stay the same. The rest of the area, as it's laid out today, is for the auto repair business, which will remain.
I'm outlining it with my cursor in case.
So for lack of a better description, the area in front of the Dunkin' Donuts counter and the area to the right of the service counter for the Jiffy Lube operation is common.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So in there, you do
And is there,
certain amount of vending for Jiffy Lube and still try to incorporate whatever weighting is appropriate.
Right.
and it, does it should be,
Pay.
Right.
How do the people pay? Do they, because sometimes when I go, I'm in the car and they come up and, so.
That's gonna be operation structure. Let's the engineer, we'll get to, we have tons of questions, and let's keep it to the engineer right now. No, I understand.
And if there's something that's pressing, we have Mr. Hill learning this morning.
Right, yeah, but let's try to keep it to the engineer right now.
All right, I'm gonna go back to the site plan rendering, which I believe is A2. Just kind of finish up the kind of operations. I am testifying to some of the operations based on what Jiffy Lube has told me. I'm gonna go over that, just kind of give you a general, mostly an overview of what how the operation will function. Obviously, if you have any specific
How it
operational
flows.
questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah.
So existing access, not gonna change, existing loading, there really is no change. From operational standpoint, as I mentioned, stacking will not take place. There's no towing taking place in the Jiffy Lube, which was the case as part of the previous tenant. Service time is approximately 30 minutes. They will have approximately 10 employees, 80-90% of their business is oil changes, no major repairs, anticipating less noise. There's existing oil tanks in the building, which we're anticipating to utilize. Waste oil picks up generally on a bi-weekly basis for those existing oil tanks, which is probably consistent with the previous operator. Waste removal, we're going to continue to utilize the existing trash closures that are on site. The busiest time of day for this type of use is generally speaking in the mornings and at nighttime, and then on Saturdays. So that's generally what we're considering the busiest times. Hours of operation, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, Sundays 10 to 4 p.m. Existing operation of existing Dunkin' is not going to change. There are a number of existing bulk setbacks and variances. Again, we're not doing any extra improvements, so we're not anticipating any of those to be modified. There is no modification to the existing lighting or landscaping. There is no modification to the existing utilities or drainage. From a signage perspective, we're replacing the existing auto repair sign with a sign that's exactly the same size. And then we're adding a number of directional signs, the 7 10-minute parking only signs. And then we're adding 3 signs on the building saying enter here, 3 signs on the building saying exit only, just to kind of, emphasize that. The existing
Can
line,
you walk us through that signage program,
yes,
like sign by sign?
yep. So there's an existing sign on the front of the building in this area, which is the auto repair sign. That's where we're looking to replace it. That's on the same side as the existing Dunkin' Donuts sign.
That'll say Jiffy Lube, something,
So say Jiffy Lube.
some proportions to fit in the existing area.
Very small, 12 square feet. It's extremely small. It's going to be very consistent with what was out there already. And then we're adding 3 signs on each one of the columns. That will be exit only signs, and we're going to reduce that down. It says 5 square feet. We're going to reduce it down to 2 square feet. And then on the other side, on each one of the columns between each space, we're going to add, vehicle entry only, and those will be again 2 square feet each. And then as far as the 10-minute parking, we're going to add 7 10-minute park. Well, it's just 8, but it should be 7 10-minute parking spaces.
Those are the ones just opposite the building.
Right. So that, because obviously you park here, then you'll enter into the existing base.
Question on the sign.
And the entrance, I'm sorry. So the entrance only sign on the Washington Road side, is there a sign there?
As far as, we could add a directional sign, just say enter Jiffy Lube, something along those lines, just so,
Well, all the way on Washington Road,
you're saying out here?
to your left, yeah.
We weren't gonna propose any sort of sign. We could propose like some sort of signage in this area,
So you're
just.
telling people exit only on the front side of the building.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So.
They need to know where to enter.
Here.
Yeah, we can enter.
But Rich, to be clear, you can enter the Jiffy Lube from 206. You can't drive into the building from the front, but you can ride around the back, driving in from 206.
Yeah, so for instance, you could
So it's gonna go around.
You could enter-
around
you could enter
the
here.
parking space, the pumps to the right, and enter from that side as well as from the other side.
Right, yeah.
But you're not doing any signage to kind of reinforce that, people just have to figure that out.
We weren't, just because we know how particular, Bedminster is about signage, and we're not trying to put a ton of signage out there unless, for if the board feels for safety reasons, we're agreeable to add as much signage as you'd like. We obviously we've had different applications here. We're very cognizant of not adding too much signage. So we want to make sure we're not extending too much signage on site.
The question I have for you, on your plan here, there's the sign says auto repair.
Yes,
It's not going to say Jiffy Lube?
it will say Jiffy Lube. We didn't want to call out the particular brand when we were going through this process, being that I don't believe the lease was signed when we started this whole process. Now, I believe Jiffy Lube is on board. I can't really speak for the applicant, but my understanding is that Jiffy Lube is going to be the tenant.
So on both sides, the sign mounted on the wall of the building will say Jiffy Lube.
Where it says auto repair sign is where it will say Jiffy Lube, yeah.
Okay. And on the monument sign too, you'll have,
So on the monument sign would just be repaneled to say Jiffy Lube.
And do I ask you this? I'm not sure who to ask, but what repair will you offer? What repairs will be offered there?
I will defer that to the operations person, Jiffy Lube.
And let's talk about the exit off of the site again. You're offering the exit onto 206 going south.
Yes,
What about going north?
so you have to use the Lamington Road in order
Yeah,
to use it.
have to use that.
Yeah.
And there's some way that people know that?
Yeah, I'll let our traffic engineer kind of go through that, because it's
Okay.
very particular, because we're dealing with DOT. So I don't want to
Yes.
say we'll add certain signage and then have DOT say we can't. So I'll
That's
defer to the
fine.
traffic engineer.
That's fine.
But to the extent we're agreeing to add signs moved by this board with DOT, we'll work with the board, especially if it's an existing condition that we want to see improved. we'll certainly-
Well, I think it's a concern to all of us how that exit's going to be.
We will work with you on it.
Okay, that's fine.
I have one more.
Just to further that point, I just feel like, you're changing the functionality, and we'll hear more about that, to the site dramatically by shifting to this sort of use in kind of a flow through kind of operation as opposed to leave your car in the morning, come back and get it at night. It's not that kind of operation anymore.
Right.
And you're changing it, but it doesn't seem like any thought was given to repurposing the size and the quantity of the signage on the front. You're reusing what's there, trying to stay within, the existing norms or established precedents there. But was any thought given to repurposing, again, within this quantity and number and size of the signage you have on site to kind of reinforce your new operation? Because, it's gonna take 6 months of screwing up before people finally figure out, oh, this is the best way to enter, this is the best way to exit. You could create signage that supports the operation that you think makes the site more functional.
Yeah,
Any
we're,
analysis done to do that?
we weren't gonna add like I said, we were gonna add signage, but I think, from my professional opinion, I think there likely should be a directional sign in the area to the left of the building, on the south side of the building, and probably an area near where the pumps are, just directing people behind the building for Jiffy Lube. But again, I'm not voting on this application, and we can get away with not having those.
Maybe the traffic engineer can help us with that.
But you said before, there's 3 exit signs on the front, there's 3 exit only signs on the front side of the building.
Right, with no logos on them, they're just exit only to
3,
indicate that you're not.
3 that say exit only.
Right.
Jim, go back to those signs, the exit and the entrance.
Yes,
If the only people driving are the employees of Jiffy Lube,
yes.
why do you need any signs on those doors?
Just kind of emphasize where you enter and where you exit from obviously,
But-
we don't want people trying to stage in these 3 parking spaces adjacent to the exit area, and then I think in particular, I'll let the Jiffy Lube person kind of go into that in a little bit detail.
Okay, but just think about that. I mean, if you're never gonna have a customer drive to the bay, and you're only gonna have an employee,
Right.
why even have signs? I mean, the employees know where to bring the cars. The problem maybe we're having is that maybe the parking spaces in the back have to be designated for Jiffy Lube.
Which they,
If I may,
But you don't want people to pull up either to the front or the back of the building.
you don't want people parking, but if you put no entrance on the front of the building, you then have people knowing that they should be going to the back of the building at that point. I didn't understand that there's a long spot to just leave the car. One of the things
Yeah, but that's the left side of the space, you guys explain what you want to do. It just seems odd. If the only people driving through the bays are employees, they know where to go. So I think, but you go ahead and present your case.
Yeah, I think maybe the traffic engineer can help us with this and maybe answer the questions that we're looking for here. And give us some suggestions as to what, as Rich would say, repurpose things a little better maybe.
the
And
question.
not just use what's there,
I have a question. I want to change subjects for a second. You went, and I'm bringing this to you because you mentioned it, and I'm sure someone else might talk about it. But you talk about hours of operation on Sundays
Yes.
from 10 to 4. And I don't know that, this is not VN zone. I don't know if we have an ordinance that says no operations on Sundays. Paul, do we have anything?
No, the site has always been permitted for operations 7 days.
So even auto repair was
Yeah.
operation on Sunday?
I don't know if they operated on Sunday,
No, they
but
didn't.
they weren't
Hey,
restricted. to operating.
I don't, we should hear about that, whether it seems to me, my understanding is that the prior auto repair use did not operate on Sunday, and operating on Sunday would be an expansion of the existing non-conforming use.
That's
a
what I
point.
wanted to bring up.
That's
Very
right.
good point, Steve.
I believe there was a Texaco approval for 19. I don't think there were any restrictions in there as far as days of operation.
We'd have to go back to their resolution, I think.
I know the resolution, it did not prohibit them from operating on Sunday.
Okay, so Paul.
Yeah, but I don't know that matters what it prohibited. They didn't use it. It was not a use. To the extent they might have been able to use it, they abandoned it. It was never used on Sunday, and this is an expansion of that use.
Well, I assume the Dunkin' Donut would be allowed to be still open, and so would the gasoline. So I think that's a question.
the application really, when we talk about expansion of use, has to do with the pit itself and the building, not, and it's the use that we're talking about in terms of the repair shop use, not the hours of operation, which are dictated by both the approvals and the ordinance. But that being said, if it's an issue for the board that it stay closed on Sunday. So
I'm sorry, though, it's not a repair shop, sir, it's a maintenance shop.
it's a,
Thank you.
and when, but if you want to close on a Sunday, then that's an issue.
Well, we can talk about that, especially when we get to operations.
Yeah, so I think overall, I think the existing, we kind of went over the benefits as we were going through this. I think there are significant benefits. A lot of the major repairs, as was referenced, are not going to be taking place as part of the way this user operates. I think.
I mean, that could be a detriment that somebody that wants their car fixed, right? So it can go either way. That's my point. You're saying it's.
Yeah, but I think from an impact, if like I said, if you
Yeah,
were to
you
be-
think, I'm just saying, you think that other people might think differently, that they want to get their car.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
Thank
you. So I think there are significant improvements that we're doing here is from an operational standpoint. I think from a circulation standpoint, the site works. From a parking perspective, the site is well parked for this type of use, as it has been, basically, I believe it's been in this use for, this is almost been 30 years since Texaco went through the approval process. So I think this, basically this improvement really will help clean up the amount of cars that are on site from an aesthetic standpoint, just from the visibility on the site. I think there's going to be significant improvement with the modification proposed. And I think the impacts overall are really minimal for the change in use.
Any other questions for the engineer?
Yeah, I do. According to Mr. Ferraro's report, item number 6 on page 2, it says that the excavation for the pits have already been completed without permits. Is that true? And if so, why?
Jim, do you want to handle this?
I can certainly add it. So, as I said in the earlier part of my introduction, the property, the repair shop had 8 hydraulic lifts. And those hydraulic lifts have tanks that are below the ground, and they had to be removed. They were also where soils had to be cleaned up out of them and taken out. And so what I believe Mr. Ferraro saw, because I was still at the site, is the excavations that were done to remove the hydraulic lifts, which were equipped. The pits themselves have not been done. We're here tonight for that approval. We are not certainly not proceeding without the board's approval to start a project, and we're asking for permission to have.
And how deep are these pits?
Right.
Floor level?
So in terms of the pits, I'll let Mr. Henry give the expert testimony of the pits for that. The pits that are there right now, or the excavations that are down there now, range in depth depending upon, some are filled in or just gravel at level. Some of them are a little bit deeper, depending upon what was taken out, whether it be soils or concrete, whatever was taken out. But they're all different levels, and it has not been refinished and repurposed at this point in time. Right now, all that's happened is hydraulics were taken out, and was done by that attitude.
Yeah, so just kind of reiterate what Jim was mentioning. So the hydraulic lifts were removed typically, in our experience, I'm not sure if I went over my experience in gas stations, but I've worked on over 100 gas stations throughout New Jersey. So pretty extensive experience there. The applicant also owns a number of gas stations in New Jersey and has renovated a lot of gas stations throughout New Jersey. So in our client's experience, when the lifts are removed, typically a building permit isn't required. So I think he removed the building permits, not knowing a building permit was required. I believe they went down and they handled the building permit issue. I believe it was today or yesterday. So my understanding is that was done. Now there was testing that was done by our office, and because originally when we were going for approvals for this, we didn't really believe that this was, in our opinion, we didn't believe this was expansion of non-conforming use. So we had done structural testing so that we could do architectural and engineered plans. So Mr. Kamlesh's office, the architect, he prepared construction drawings, and we submitted it to your zoning officer as we didn't anticipate board approval would be required. So we did basically soil testing to confirm that the structure could hold the pits, and that's part of what you see ripped up inside, is that we did some geotechnical testing inside the building.
Okay, did you test the soils for contamination?
We're not involved.
That was part of the process of moving the hydraulics. And that's one thing that regardless of whether this gets approved or not, the hydraulic lifts are out now. And there's always an environmental risk when you have something with a tank under the ground. And that has now been removed. So whatever happens, those tanks are gone and will not be replaced.
And I believe the applicant has an LSRP involved in this property, and we can provide whatever paperwork is required by the board engineer.
Thank you.
I have a question. Mr. Henry, it says on the bottom there, is there going to be a basement, proposed basement? If you go down a little farther at your cursor, it says, I guess the front apron says to be replaced as required for excavation of proposed prop basement, down. If you go, keep on going down, keep going.
No, it's not a basement, it's a pit area.
Oh, okay, so that's, okay, for pit area. Basement, okay.
Was asked. So if you go over 6 foot 6 inches, that's where it would be considered
Habitable space.
habitable space, and we're underneath that, we're going 6 foot 5 inches.
So it'll be an open area less than 6.5 feet, which under the ordinance is not habitable area and therefore not part of the net leasing area.
Correct.
So the floor area of the building remains exactly the same before and after. The only part is that some of the floor area will now be more than 6 feet below the remainder of the floor area. That's it.
Correct.
So from a zoning perspective, from a land use perspective, we're not changing the floor area.
And it's the pit. There's no.
Yeah, but there's a note on the drawing that says basement.
Yeah.
On that apron.
I think
There's no ceiling to this.
There's no ceiling.
Right? There's no
Right.
submerged floor.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just that the space is 6.5 feet lower than the space above. Is that?
And the floor.
Correct.
Well, there's no floor, there's no ceiling to it.
But for the board's edification, there is nothing proposed other than this pit area that we've been striving to. I believe it was just a poor choice of words in that part of the drawing. But initially, when we looked at all of this, one of the thought, when we first started to design the area, basement was where you look, because you're digging a hole in the ground. But then when you consider all the different
So
factors.
there is no proposed basement.
There's no proposed basement.
Even though the drawing says proposed basement, there's no proposed basement.
But it's referring to the pit area as a basement. And
Well, it's actually pointing to an area in that apron. in front of
It's
the-
calling out, this was a carryover from when we were initially looking at the site plan, because we thought we were gonna have to do some geotech testing out here. Eventually, we did the geotech testing inside the building, so it's just a carryover. Everywhere else, it calls it out pit area.
And as long as the pit is less than 6.5 feet.
Right.
You're good.
Yes.
And we can make that as an absolute condition because that's what we're intending to do.
Correct.
We're not looking to do.
The question I have is, what difference does it make? If you're not increasing the size of the building and the floor area, what difference does it make if it's 6.5 feet or 6 feet 5 inches?
Because the argument could be made that its net habitable floor area increases the net habitable area of the building. I think because it's a pit and there's nothing above it, it's actually a set part of the building that has a ceiling height that's 6.5 feet higher than the rest of the building. The other bays have a 10-foot ceiling
Right.
instead of a 16.5-foot ceiling.
Right. Okay, so it's a technicality kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, we're trying to live within the approvals as far as it was granted, and not trying to overextend what was granted. We appreciate what's there, and we're just trying to work within the boundaries.
Anyone else from the board?
None of that pit area gets like a waffle metal deck to go to the point of its usable floor area. There's none of that pit area gets a waffle deck on it or anything like that.
I'll let the architect go into how that's gonna function, so I'm just gonna.
Right, so even if it did have a waffle deck, some kind of steel decking, what have you, even if it did, because the space below it is less than 6.5 feet, it's not operational or functional. Correct, Mr. Paul? That's correct.
Okay. It doesn't count towards floor.
It doesn't count the floor area ratio.
It's functional.
All right, board, Walters,
Yeah, just one other question. The second story is only used for storage.
Yes,
All right, so is Jiffy Lube gonna have any kind of an office anywhere?
they have their office downstairs in the where the same operation as the existing auto repair. That's where the office space was for the auto repair.
Oh, I thought that, I'm sorry, I thought that's where chairs were being put. Okay.
There's still gonna be a small counter area in that area.
Steve, let's get into that more with the architect, okay? When he comes up.
Is it at besides, because it's fully 2.5 stories, no, with the gable?
I'll let the architect answer that. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's full, but there's definitely a gable there. So,
Yeah, that's. Okay, we'll open it up to the public, Janine, see if anybody has come on, if anybody's interested in. Any questions?
It looks like it's, besides Jake, it's either people or the applicant, or Frank, or Tim, or Steve. I don't believe we have any other public.
Okay, then we can close it to the public. And we can move on to your next expert.
So I'm gonna bring up Mr. Kovacs, either the traffic or it sounds like you've got operational questions.
I think so.
I want to make sure you're satisfied with that, so I'm going to hold on, fill up the 5 minutes.
Sure.
I'm gonna say, show it, yeah.
Mhm.
Mr. Hill, if you could just give the board the benefit of your background, how you come here today, in terms of your knowledge of the use, what you're proposing here today, the operations, what's going to be offered, and what gives you the understanding to be able to use the testimony.
Sure. So as I stated in my opening, I'm a Jiffy Lube franchisee. Our company is Premium Velocity Auto LLC. We have 187 Jiffy Lubes across the United States in 15 different states. We have 2 other locations in New Jersey. And we've been a franchisee for approximately 4 years. For Jiffy Lube.
You say
4-0?
4 years. For Jiffy Lube, sorry. Jiffy Lube's been around for 40 years, but we've only been a franchisee for 4 years. Prior to that, I worked for Shell Corporation, which owns Jiffy Lube, and so I have experience in that end also, but I've been a franchisee for 4 years.
Mr. Hill, if you could, just describe for the board how you anticipate this operation working. The car pulling onto the site, leaving the car, going through getting the service done, and then leaving the site.
Sure. So I don't know, it might be easier for all if we put the plan up, but I did like the testimony earlier, and I 100% agree. It is, our job is light maintenance of a car. We're not here to repair cars. We're here to maintain them. That's our primary business. And I think it is an important distinction. So typically in the Jiffy Lube operation, as you can see, we would have cars enter through the so the back end of the building. The customer itself does not typically enter the building. They will pull up. So I think on those signs, we have to be kind of clear. It's not enter here. We don't want the customer driving into the bay for their own safety and our safety. So it would pull up, and I don't have the exact wording, and we could put it the way you like, but typically we'd say something to the effect of stop here, let us take it from here. We have a person who's a greeter who comes out to that car. They welcome them to Jiffy Lube. We escort them into the lobby. If we have an open bay, we pull the car in ourselves. It's directed by other employees. If in that instance, all the bays are full, which I don't think would be the majority of the time, frankly, we would guide it and we would park it ourselves in the designated spots. And then that customer would come into the lobby. If customers choose, which particularly in the last few years are more comfortable with, that they want to stay in their vehicle or they're not comfortable with us entering their vehicle, we will let them do that for sure as the customer. But our kind of process and our policy is to walk the customer into the lobby and we take care of the car from that point. We would pull it into the bays. Again, typically almost 90% of our work is oil changes. So we'd use those first 2 opening bays with the 4 bays, and we would manage the car from there. Upon exiting, I think there was a question about how they pay. So there's two different ways. We do have tablets where they can pay, similar to probably what you do today in other retail establishments, or in the lobby area there, we'll take that existing counter, we'll make it much smaller, and we'll have a POS system there that they can pay. At that point, our what we call our customer service attendant would walk them out to the car, which we've pulled out of the exit area. Again, we don't want them driving the car out of the bay for safety reasons. And then, we'd be happy to the earlier discussion about instruction and which way to go, to point to the exit or arrows painted on the ground. We're open to, what you prefer to see there, but I think having us place them in the car and send them on their way would handle some of that, maybe potential of which way do I go. From my time at the site, I think it's fairly apparent you would kind of turn right and head out that way, but you could also go straight out onto 206. I don't think people would typically or be inclined to go left and go into the kind of Dunkin' gas station area.
I have a
Sure.
question. Since you are the franchisee, so you're the owner more or less of the Jiffy Lube franchise there. So the area in front of the building, especially in the morning and when the gas station, when the auto repair was operating, that area is a drive-through for all of those gas pumps, as well as a drive to, through, and for Dunkin' Donuts, as well as the in and outs for the auto repair shops who are bringing cars in and out of the bays. That area is also an area where trucks deliver in front there. In fact, this morning, there was a tractor trailer truck in front of delivering for Dunkin' Donuts that blocked almost the entire front. In fact, all of your bays would have been blocked by that Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
So I think we can talk about this with the traffic study, but that area is just overutilized, overcrowded, and I've almost had myself 4 or 5 accidents in there over the years. I just don't know how you can. I want you to be able to improve on something there, because I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. I've seen it, and if Dunkin' Donuts is going to drop off a tractor trailer in front of your bays in the prime morning hours, which this morning was 9:15, that could be an issue for you. So I just want to bring this all to light for everyone here.
I don't want to speak for Dunkin' Donuts, but my guess would be because there hasn't been a business there for about 1.5 years, maybe, I don't want to say bad habits, but maybe they've utilized that space because there hasn't been a build up there. We get, for truck delivery for ourselves, typically is we'll get an oil delivery mostly once a week, typically once every other week. So certainly not as often as a gas station or maybe a Dunkin' would get deliveries. So we have oil deliveries, and then we have people who bring kind of our filters and those type of things. And we use Service Champ, who's a national provider of that, and we order from them once a week. So you're talking about 2 trucks a week for us. We certainly wouldn't, I agree with you, bringing them up front is not the spot to be. We wouldn't do that. And then I think the only other truck we would have kind of on a rotation delivery would be around the waste oil removal. And they typically come about every other week. But I agree with you. I think hopefully where we could help is, again, because our employee is bringing that car out, right? We'd be more there. And then if, in our mind, typically what we would do is just have them come out of the exit and then we'd walk the customer into the car. If we felt like from a traffic standpoint that wasn't the ideal way to do it, we could take the car out and come around the building and park it for the customer so
Right.
they could leave easier.
That might be a better option, because if you brought the
I'm
car out
open
in
to that.
front,
That's not an issue.
if you brought that car out in front, you blocked that passageway
I understand.
between everything. It's the
we
main course there.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. And we actually talked about that earlier. If it makes more sense for us to take the car out and bring it around and park it.
Yeah.
we'd be
I'm not
happy
telling you how to
do
run
that.
your business.
No,
I've
but
been living
we
here
were
a
talking
long
about the
time.
same thing. Yep.
If you could, just describe for what the number of employees you have, the hours of operation.
Oh, I'm sorry, sure. So you mentioned 10 employees. That's how many employees we'd have for the whole store. We typically wouldn't have all 10 employees working at the same time. Typically, for our business to manage expected customers, we would have 6 to 7 employees, including the store manager, but have typically 10 employees. Hiring is a challenge right now, as everybody knows, but in an ideal situation, we have about 10 employees. Our hours are 8 to 6. That allows for us to get in and get folks who maybe want to come in first thing in the morning, get their oil changed, and then get on to work. Again, we're not looking for them to drop their cars, come back. That's not our typical business. And then we typically would be open Sundays from 10 to 4. I understand from earlier conversations that might be a concern for you all. I mean, we'd be willing to have the right conversation, but we like to be open for some hours on Sunday for folks, frankly, who work during the week and want to get their oil changed, and Saturday and Sunday might be the only times to do that without missing work. That's our reason for it, but we also appreciate some of the sensitivities around a Sunday.
The 10 employees, does that include Dunkin' Donut and the gas station?
No, that's for Jiffy Lube.
So you-
And again, we typically would have 6 to 7 working at a time. We would have
For
10
Jiffy,
employees.
for Jiffy.
For Jiffy Lube, yes.
And so then the others are in addition to that.
Yes, I don't know how many employees the others would have.
You don't have any connection to the gas station at all whatsoever. It's completely separate operation.
Correct.
So, you mentioned the greeter.
Mhm.
There's some kind of cashier, for lack of a better description,
Mhm.
right? Who's gonna be processing things. Potentially 4 techs in the pit, or, you know. at least-
No, we actually would only have one person in the pit. They rotate between the 4 cars for the activities they do and the timing. We have a whole,
So
as you can imagine, Jiffy Lube process, they can manage multiple
Only
cars.
draining the oil pan is done from the bottom and everything else is done from up top.
He would start draining one car, he moves to the next car to work something else, he comes back when that's completed draining. We have a full Jiffy Lube process. When we do an oil change, if it's just an oil change and we're not doing any other ancillary services, it's usually less than 15 minutes.
And what other services do you provide besides the oil change?
So we do what we call ancillary services. So that would be examples, that would be like you need, we'll do a service review of your car. So you might need wipers, or, you might need your coolant's topped off, quick light things that we can do. And you probably wouldn't notice in your time waiting for your car. What we call the multi-care piece would be brakes. We would offer brakes. We do, again, light maintenance. We're not fixing engines. We're not getting in that business. 1, that's not what we do. 2, we don't want that mess. We don't want cars staying. Our process and our flow is to keep the cars going. That's what we do. We don't take appointments. You pull in, take care of you, we move you on. We will do tires. Our typical tire sales, frankly, is we might sell a tire every 2 days. Our tire sales would be, if I came in and you were doing an oil change and during our service review, we said, did you know you have a nail in your tire, or your tire is really worn down? It's not safe. We can replace that. That's our typical tire customer. We're not going out like, hey, I want a set of 4 new tires. And I would guess if I went across the board, you probably don't think I want to go to Jiffy Lube to get 4 tires. You're going to one of your tire stores in the market.
And do you store these tires on site, or do you
So
buy
what
them
we
as
would-
needed?
So what we typically do is we will store 12 tires, which are most common SKUs. So we'd have, our 12 most common SKUs of cars, and we'd have a tire there so that if you are in that situation, you need a tire, like we wouldn't keep 4 of each, we keep 1. And then we do work with a national distributor, ATD, who will bring us a tire. So if it turned out you needed one and we didn't have it, that is one situation where we'd say, hey, we'll order the tire for you. It'll be here in 2 hours or whatever they tell us. They would leave with their car and come back. Convenient for them to get the tire.
And where are these tires stored?
If you can pull up the,
Go back to SCH.
so I think where it does not show a lift right now, that wall there, we put a small tire rack. It's about 6 feet long and 4 feet high. We don't-
Inside?
Inside, I'm sorry. Yeah, we won't keep tires outside. I tell you, it's a pet peeve of mine to see tires on those wheel racks outside that are out in the conditions, getting rained on and everything else. We don't do that. And those tires are placed there. We also don't put them at height. We don't want our employees going up and getting tires in an unsafe condition. So we have kind of 2 rows of 6 tires each that they can reach from the ground.
And you do,
Mr. Hill, how many cars do you service in an 8 to 6 typical day?
So our national average is just over 30 cars a day for service. We obviously have some cars that do more than that and some that do less. We're optimistic that we would do around that 30 cars, obviously to, maintain a good business for us.
Saturday would be your peak day.
Our typical busiest days are Friday, Saturday, and Monday. Saturday, probably a little more than Friday and Monday. Yeah.
So if the average is 30, what do you do on a typical Saturday?
I don't know the exact number. I would guess in a 30 store, we're probably doing 40 on a Saturday, but I'm guessing a little bit. I don't know the exact number, sorry.
All right, so in an hour, you're not filling up all your bays, basically, usually.
Let me start over, Walt. We didn't hear you.
So on a typical hour, you're not filling up your bays unless maybe, I guess, 3.5 cars or 4 cars don't come every hour. You might get more, from like 8 to 10 and then maybe from 5 to 6 kind of thing. My concern, the reason I'm asking that is just queuing on the outside, are
Right.
all 15 cars going to come at once? And is that going to be crazy? What's your experience with that?
So, yeah, no, it's a good point. We don't typically see that. We see, as you said, there are certainly busier times in the day, kind of first thing in the morning, folks want to maybe come in or after work and kind of 4 to 6 period. We, with 7 spots available inside the store, we typically will not have people waiting, cars outside. Obviously, we have it set up to handle that for parking as they described earlier. But, on a Saturday morning, when we have a little rush, we might have more than 7 cars come in. And we would handle those cars, but it'd be pretty unusual for us to have any cars outside the building. We're typically bringing that car in and before spots where the pits are for oil changes, that will manage the majority of our business time.
So when somebody drives up, they're going to park in front of the bay, let's say bay number 2 or bay number 4 there.
Okay.
They're going to be greeted, they're going to get out of the car, and then how are they going to walk around the building to go inside, or are they going to
Yeah.
go there with the iPad? How's that? Walk us through the process and where that customer then goes while the car is being worked on.
No, good question. So we will greet them. We have a tablet and iPad. At the greeting, we'll scan their car in within our system. So we, if they've come there before, we have their history or if they've been any Jiffy Lube, so we can talk to them about their car at that point. With the layout of this station, they could walk around the building. That's not what we would plan to do. We would walk them kind of down bay 2 and bay 1. And we escort them again into bays for safety reasons. We don't want customers walking in bays by themselves where somebody could get hurt. And then we walk them into that door that enters kind of where the counter is, if you can see that. Your point, they could walk around the building and come in through the Dunkin' Donut front door. But again, as a greeter, we would walk them down that side. And we would, the open area is painted yellow, the OSHA hazard paint, and then we would do kind of a red line to show where they should walk. And we always walk with them, and we actually walk on the inside so that they're away from the opening.
All right, so they'll be in that waiting area, maybe 3 or 4 of them, maybe between an 8 and 9 timeframe. There might be 4 or 5, and I guess they'll just mingle with the Dunkin' Donuts people going in and out. That's my only concern, honestly, is just what's going to be going on in that waiting room? Are people just hanging outside? Are they going to get in the way of traffic, kind of thing?
So again, there's some folks, frankly, and particularly more, frankly, in the last 2 years, as you can imagine, who might say, I'd rather stay in my car. In that situation, we would have them exit their car so we could drive it into the bay.
Uh-huh.
And we would walk them and they could get back in their car again in those oil change spots. We're not raising the car because we have the pit. So it's safe for them to get in their car.
Okay.
Wouldn't be on again. So if it's cold or hot, that may not be the most favorite place for them to stay if they want. But again, we appreciate, some folks have concerns understandably about, with somebody in their car. Part of our service, which I think might be different than the other competitors, is we will vacuum out your car and do your windows inside and out. So we want access to the car, which is why we ask the customer to step out. And we also think they'll have a better experience if they're not sitting in a bay, like have some people working on their car around them. But we also are sensitive to some folks may want to stay in their car.
The excess people would stay in their cars until you're ready for them? Is that,
Again, we'd leave that choice up to them. I mean, they'd be happy to stay in there. And then I know we talked about idling. We'd follow the state regulations around that. Again, I would think with weather, most folks probably would not want to do that. But if they choose to do that, then we'd let them do that. But again, if they were in the queue and in that parking spot, we would then, when it was their turn, we would take the car from there and take it.
Have you been on the site?
Yes.
And what are your feelings about the waiting area? Because right now, there were two small chairs.
Right.
And there were times when I actually had to wait for my car to be repaired.
Okay.
And it was extremely uncomfortable because those chairs were right next to the station where people were getting their coffee and all that kind of stuff. So I would like to know how you feel about the waiting area, considering that it's common with Dunkin' Donuts.
I know some of the folks won't be able to see online, but I'll show you what we propose. if that helps.
Yes, sure.
So he has this, and they have this rather, like, consider a large counter that takes up unnecessary space, in my opinion. We would bring a smaller counter here for kind of the checkout point. We'd also put, you asked about offices before. We wouldn't have an office, but we'd have like a small, we use a Loomis Safe Service where they drop the money there. So we don't go out to banks. And then we would put, I believe you thought we could fit 5 chairs here on this wall. But this counter would go and it actually, in my opinion, would open up the lobby and make it less uncomfortable as you do.
Yeah.
No, that's a good idea.
Also online, I don't know if, I try to follow you on that.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't take additional area, we would just remove that long counter, which I don't think is necessary for a customer and we don't need it. And then we make it more comfortable for everyone and put chairs there, no tables, so we're not encouraging other use, would be, a comfortable chair for folks to wait in.
Thank you.
Relationship between the number of service bays that you have, waiting room chairs that you, in your 180 store inventory, is there a relationship there that you kind of determine that you need?
Yes, I don't know the exact formula, but there is. I mean, typically we would not need more than 6 or 7 chairs, which I think is what we can do here. So it's a kind of a 1-to-1 ratio. Again, we're moving people through pretty quickly. The other thing we'll find is some folks may prefer, they'll get in this case, maybe they want to get a Dunkin' Donut coffee or they want to stand outside and make a call. Obviously they're welcome to do that. Again, in our minds, our typical customers, they're, less than 30 minutes. So.
is that what's currently there for the Dunkin' Donut? I've never been in that Dunkin' Donut, to tell you the
I think that's
truth.
accurate.
Is that the way it's?
Yeah, it's more narrow than it actually looks on the drawing.
Yeah.
In my opinion, removing that length, the long vertical part of the counter will help that area space a lot.
On a busy morning, the Dunkin' Donuts line goes all the way out to the door.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that area is kind of small.
Understand.
More so with this business here.
Yeah. Anyone else from the board? Okay. Tim or Steve, anything more?
No, I appreciate it. Mr. Hill did a good job.
Okay, good. You want to open it up, Jeannie, see if there's anybody?
And I believe it's just the applicant, Frank, Jake, and Tim and Steve, outside.
I'll still say it, Janine, so.
Is there anyone out there that has a question that is not part of the board of the applicant?
Okay, so we'll close it to the public and your next witness.
Thank you.
Should we take a 5-minute break? Anybody want a 5-minute break right now? Yeah? Let's take 5 minutes and then we'll be ready.
We'll take.
So, thank you. We've come to the next witness. I'm going to bring up Mr. Shaw, Thomas Shaw, our architect. A lot of what he was going to testify to, or could testify to, is already been in the record. So what I wanted to do is testify to the number of chairs, look at the area there, there's been an issue. And then if there are any questions that the board has for Mr. Shaw, based upon the testimony we've heard tonight, I'm certainly welcome to ask for the public as well. For right now, all
Madam Chair, can I ask a question of the council first before we go into the next?
Sure.
I want to understand how the site is organized or managed in terms of, the relative tenants, so-called tenants. A third party, so help me out. A third party owns the property or the Shell franchisee owns the property?
Okay, so the property is owned by Anthony Berlin, 1525 and Mr. Ellis.
Well, that's a single use entity.
It is, in this case, the principals of that LLC also have an operating company which operates the gas station business. So it's under common ownership. There are two entities that are under common ownership. So with respect to the control of the site, deliveries of the gas, the operations of the gas station, and ownership of the site, that's all under common ownership.
So 1525 owns the site
And an affiliate owns the gas.
and the operating company does the gas operation.
Correct.
Some kind of lease between the operating company and 1525.
They operate together,
And
yes.
then there's another lease with Dunkin' Donuts?
So Dunkin' Donuts has its own lease for the area that we've identified as the 180 square feet of area. They operate under a lease for that. Then there's going to be a lease, and there is a lease right now, with Jiffy Lube to remain, hopefully, subject to this board's approval. We get it, and the operate. So all three will be there. And then those tenants will work together on the site.
So 3 tenants,
Yes,
1 ownership entity
of the real estate, yes.
of the real estate.
Yes, and all of these interactions that you're concerned about with respect to waiting areas, common areas, whatnot, are built into the structure of the leases and the way the site works.
And who manages the site on a day-to-day basis?
So each business manages themselves, but the principal with the landowner also is available, and also has site managers who go out and circulate around all of the sites. As this operator has about 60 gas stations in northern and central New Jersey. So he has other sites with donuts,
right, so-
7-Elevens, with Popeyes fried chicken, whatever the case may be, the gas main is the main business, but they have other uses. So this is not uncommon to the things that he does and or he. But this is what they do. They operate these multifunctional sites that have gas and other uses.
All right, so it's not you.
Yes.
Who resolves the issue when the Dunkin' Donuts truck shows up at the same time, the tanker shows up at the same time that the Jiffy Lube supplier shows up with their 55-footer?
The principal.
Who manages that problem?
Principal is operating. We get the call in that case. Thankfully, we haven't had those calls that I'm aware. But that's what I'm saying, I'm aware. But there is no issue, but those issues would then get resolved through the principal, the ownership of the real estate, and also the operating company. Gas station. Now, just also with respect to the timing of deliveries, with respect to the gas. Not only does the same operator have the Shell operation on the site, not only the real estate, but also the distributor as well. So in terms of the timing of deliveries, we can control the timing of deliveries. So we have that in our ability to expect the gas business to change, if you want from 2 in the afternoon or 9 at night in the morning. We can work with the occupants of the property, the board had a preference, we work with the board, but those are things that my client can control because he operates the
So the 2 underground tanks for the gas station at the rear, supplying the logistics around those tanks is something that the ownership entity can manage specific.
Yes, he has full control of that, and would certainly operate that in a manner that is, many tenants would have a problem with. So if Jiffy Lube is open during the day and any parking spots for circulation, there wouldn't be deliveries during that time, because Mr. Hill would be calling up my client and saying, hey, I can't get my cars in there, what the heck are you doing? And then next thing you know, we're gonna change the deliveries. But again, your question is a good one. My answer hopefully is a good one. I never get these calls that say, oh, we have a problem with the site because there was, we got too many deliveries going on, or whatever. It is managed, the owner of the real estate, the principal, very handsome. These situations all do work themselves out, but he does have to control the payments. Now, with respect to the deliveries to the dump. When, for the test, the comment tonight here about that, it's the first I've heard about that issue. And it's certainly agree with my clients. But ARB, because the gas, the repair business is closed for a year, it just may be that it's now available space during the morning when the repair business was open. We may not have had that issue, and I'm not sure if you saw it before, while the repair business was open. But now somebody says, nothing's going on the site, it's dead quiet, we can drop a delivery off at 9 in the morning because it's a good spot to do it, because nothing else is going on the site. We would have to manage that issue. And we have to manage the deliveries, make sure all the tenants are satisfied with what they have. But right now, it's not been an issue that's brought to my client's attention, it's a problem. If it is a problem, because regardless of how this application, it sounds like it was an issue out there one morning. If 9 o'clock deliveries are a problem, or more of my client actually, representative of my client is here tonight, and I'm sure he'll pass on the word as well, this issue. And it's a general proposition, again, outside of this application. If there are issues with the site, sometimes the tenants don't listen. Now, again, he's operating gas and maybe he doesn't get the word to over, he's not noticing it, but there are issues. My client is very reachable, I'm very reachable, and certainly, he's part of this community. He's very happy to do this. He wants to expand what he's doing. If these are issues that come up, again, outside of this application, we certainly welcome contact with us to address the issue.
So you represent Jiffy and the owner, is that?
I represent the owner of the property. the
Yes.
Operating company. I'm here on behalf of the owner making this application.
Okay.
I'd like to get Jiffy into the site.
Okay, I got it. Mhm, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm,
I thank you, and again, I appreciate the comments too about the operational issues.
mhm, okay.
You have some thoughts?
By the way, on that, maybe Mr. Federici could identify where the preferred location for tractor trailer deliveries are. Because this is an issue at this site.
No question.
And one of the things we can discuss, and it's a very recent, right now, the testimony is we have additional parking. Possibility is maybe we can talk about putting an area that would be more designated as a loading zone, which you heard Mr. Hill discuss in his testimony. The use for doesn't really need 28 spaces. He's got 10 employees, let's say all 10 drive up. He's got 7 cars waiting, he's got 7 cars in the bay, which is far more than is even testified would need to be necessary. So you're talking 17 spaces, and we still got 11 spaces left over in the back. Historically, those spaces were being used by previous garage that was storing cars.
Hmm.
We don't need to do that. So maybe we can talk about a loading zone site, and be able to accommodate the trucks that you're concerned about. Again, gas is out of park and gas. We can certainly talk about that. Again, my client wants to make this a workable application for all, make you comfortable with what you're approving, and make a good site for this. So this very certainly that comes.
Since you work for the owner, can you tell us how many more employees are there besides what Jiffy Lube will be there? Do you know how many Dunkin' Donut and the gas station employ?
I can try to find that answer out for you before the night is out. I don't have the answer. I don't know.
I think we'd like to know the total.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Henry, since he's briefed this as well, let him answer that.
Okay, good.
So Dunkin', the number of employees for Dunkin' varies depending on the time of day. I was told by the franchisee today that during peak times, they generally have between 2 to 4 employees, and during off-peak, they have 2 employees. And then for the gas station, they have 1 to 2 employees, typically one employee for the kiosk.
Can you review while you're on that subject? How many spots are allocated for the Jiffy Lube? How many spots are allocated for the Dunkin' Donuts, and how many spots are allocated for the gas station?
So right now, they're not, just so everyone's aware, they're not specifically designated, but for the gas station, at max, you would need two spaces, because if you have 2 employees there at one time,
Mhm.
you know, most of the gas station employees, most of the time, are dropped off or they're local to the area. So most of the time, on most of the gas stations we work on, there's very rarely is the gas attendant, does he have a car? Most of the time, he's coordinating drop-offs, being dropped off by Uber, that sort of thing. So, but max, let's say you have.
He still needs to.
Still needs to, although I don't think it's really in your land use code. I don't believe there's a requirement for
Yeah,
that.
there isn't because it's not permitted use.
Okay, yeah. So I don't think there's any. Yeah, so I don't think there's really, so in my head, 2 parking spaces for the gas station. I believe the previous approval for Dunkin' required 9 spaces for the Dunkin', and then the remainder would be for the auto repair or auto maintenance use, or we designate it. So,
And that one, under your zoning ordinance, you require 4 spaces for every day, so that.
Now, total spots are over there, I believe there's 44, let me just double check, yeah, so overall required, I believe there's 36 required, so there's 8 extra
You
spaces.
did say that, yeah. Okay. All right.
And again, in the past, those spaces may do the proposed use of. A lot.
Okay, good.
Any other questions that the board has coming back before I go to Mr. Shaw?
I don't see any, so I think we're ready for your architect.
I believe most of what Mr. Shaw testified to that we discussed. I did want to just clarify, the seating question.
Yeah.
I have testified to that. I believe this board or any members of the community have any questions for him on some of the testimony from the architect perspective. Certainly testify. So Mr. Shaw, you agree with this form? You could testify as to the number of seats you think we get in that company.
Right, so I was actually working out while we were talking about this, the. Mr. Shaw, I'm sorry, if you could, just some minimal qualifications and
Oh, I'm
licensure.
sorry, that's right. You say I'm not. Mr. Shaw, if you could please tell the board by whom you're reporting.
Yes, I'm self-employed. I am the principal of Kamla Shah Designs. I have a 35 years experience. As I said earlier, the office is located in Cranberry. And I've worked with this franchisee for the longest time, the real estate owner. And these drawings were done under my supervision.
Your educational background.
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in architecture. I have active licenses in the state of New Jersey, New York, and Maryland. And I've, as I said earlier, worked on these projects, many projects, and represented myself and my client in over 100 townships in New Jersey and also New York.
And when you say represented in front of these townships, you qualify as an expert in those communities?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I would like to offer Mr. Shaw as an expert in the architectural. I appreciate his knowledge.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
we accept this qualification.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So with that, Mr. Shaw.
So, yeah, as I was listening to the testimonies and the questions from the board members, we obviously hadn't shown seating, but I was working on trying to see how many we can accommodate. I saw we can easily accommodate 5 to 6 seats. And what gets better here is when Mr. Hill said that the long counter that is existing there, which is basically used by the service station right now, if it's going to be cut back, it's going to make the flow even better. So you could utilize the wall space to put in chairs. There's a little bit of a space on the side of the end of the reach-in refrigerators. So you have some there as well. So 6 to 6 very easily.
And with that, I would offer Mr. Shaw for any questions, the board or.
Does that require any more parking, Paul? If you put in
No,
seating,
because the parking is related to
the uses? Mhm.
What I would suggest though is that if the board would approve the application, the plan to be updated to show that
Oh, yeah.
configuration of the.
I agree.
Mr. Shaw, do they plan on using the second floor for office space?
No, as far as this application is concerned and the task that we've been given, the second floor is existing as is.
And there are two big mechanical rooms upstairs, and most of the rest of the space is used for storage.
Is it finished space or is it open walls or?
It is finished.
And is there an elevator that gets the supplies up and down?
No elevator, no, because the storage is small boxes, paper products, and things like that.
There's nothing, no attic space in the gable?
No,
And the attic is not part of the current applicant's existing lease,
Like,
right? Is Jiffy Lube isn't leasing the second floor.
I believe they're not.
Good question for you. This might be, I don't know if you're the correct person to ask, but I'm looking at the floor plan here. And what you're representing on here is there's, I guess, some kind of a platform that the cars are driving onto when the employees pull it in. And I mean, I'm just seeing this big long line here. And the only reason I'm asking is, like, for example, on the front door, there's an existing doorway in the garage doors, which I guess would be closed in the wintertime when it's cold or so forth like that. What's to prevent somebody from like walking in that door and falling into the pit type of a thing? You know what I'm saying?
Is it a safety issue?
Yeah. And I don't know if this might be something for the franchisee. I'm just curious as to.
And the franchisee just said, I think I can answer that.
Okay.
Okay.
So, a concern of ours also.
I would think so.
So, it's, we use what we call, in-ground lifts, so they're flat, so when you drive, you're not, there's a picture of that, you're not walking over a lift. That, so it's flat in, and then if necessary, lift it up. And then there are nets over the pits. So, when there's no cars there, for our policy, those nets are closed, so if employees then were to fall, the nets are there to keep them from falling over there.
Right, okay, I mean, I guess it's some kind of like a track that the cars are driven onto. Right now, I guess those things that are on either side are what the tires sit
The
on.
axes are in-ground lifts, so they're flat, they're flush to the concrete, so you would drive, you would.
Right.
Okay. But that's where we pull them up, and we pull the cars up to the front of the opening. Stop there, so we can work. And the magnets are covering any area.
Right, and I guess because there's two cars and maybe in there at a time, that I guess that, you know, and I guess the one that moves up and it's part of your process. And then when the car is done, it's the exits on the other side.
So, if we had to, typically, if we're running a process correctly, the cars in front are being worked first, and they're going out first.
What is that device that's between the two bays there? It looks almost like an elevator of some sort. Or is that a ladder? Yeah.
You see, there's like a door. Yeah, that's the piece here there.
I think that's an existing door.
That's inside the building.
Yes.
Yeah, between the two bays.
Well, it is the ladder that's going down. It's a straight up ladder to go
Okay.
down to the
Yeah, the
pit.
second exit.
So there's another, okay, so that's another way, another access.
That's a gate, that's not a full height room, that's just a
It's a hole in the floor.
hole in the floor.
And it's bracketed and gated.
Gotcha.
And there are steel decks that the cars drive onto.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Because the
Yeah,
pit
is
is wide open.
Right.
Right, is the pit all
No. it is-
bay 1, 2, 3, and 4 the entirety, or is the pit that
So-
sort of horizontal and
That's what I'm
vertical?
trying to wrap my head
It
around.
is
Yeah.
the vertical narrow line. The opening, the opening is that part.
So it's in there and then across the bottom?
Yeah, it's not one big opening.
Oh, all right, yes, that's what I was having trouble understanding based on the drawing, okay.
So it's like a big.
That's why I had, like, I was concerned about the opening in the door.
So the opening that you're referring to would just be this piece here.
Gotcha,
These are what we call in-ground lifts, so if we need to lift the car a foot or so, we don't take them up in the air.
right,
And they're flat, so if you drove in, you wouldn't even notice them.
right, so they only
You
have,
Park it here, here,
Mhm.
but then these are covered with nets when there's no cars there.
but the pit, they can walk under the other areas to get to that area, say from the stair. So I mean, that's just 6.5 foot clearance or whatever the height is under that. Okay. All right, that makes more sense.
The double dash line, that's kind of the perimeter of the
The extent of the open area below.
Yeah.
Okay.
total pit areas.
Yes.
Right, all right, yeah, that makes more sense then.
This outlines kind of the total pit area.
Okay. Now, is there any reason that you chose only to do that half and not like 6 of them?
It's not necessary for our business. It would be,
Gotcha.
it would be increased use that frankly is not efficient, needed for us.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anything more for the architect? We're working with the architect right now.
Somebody mentioned before, I think Mr. Henry mentioned before, that the area for the Dunkin' Donuts is 180 square feet. And that's outlined by the front edge of the counter and the workspace behind, correct?
And the coolers.
Yeah, I believe it's generally speaking, this area is the Dunkin' space.
Okay, so the area where the reach-in boxes are, or the coolers are, on the right there?
Yeah.
Is that part of the 180 square feet you calculated?
I'm not 100% sure if those coolers are part of that calculation. I know the counter space was part of.
Well, again, it's been a while, but I guess the equipment was taken away from the square footage. So reach-in is part of the equipment.
Okay, so in laying out the chairs the way you know, are suggesting you can fit 5. There's no plan to reorganize the way Dunkin' Donuts functions.
No,
So Dunkin' Donuts would function exactly the way it does today. And the 5 little waiting room chairs would be within the area where the counter is outlined now.
that's correct. If I may, if you look at this counter here. Right?
Mhm.
Sorry. So this is a linear counter that is currently used by the service station. Mr. Hill said they're gonna cut this back, and we were planning to then put the chairs behind there on the wall. I was saying there's a little bit of room at the end of the reach-ins, you could put a chair or 2 right there as well.
Well,
It
you
basically opens up the.
You have the 2, you have the waste receptacle and the condiments there today. By the window.
The chair over there too,
Yeah, I was
isn't
just, I was just saying today, that area, there is a small area.
Yeah, so I think the 180 is completely mischaracterizing the way Dunkin' Donuts works. Because 80% of that space is dedicated for Dunkin' Donuts purposes.
Yeah.
And that's gotta be 500 square feet.
I think the way it's defined, and correct me if I'm wrong, as for, I believe it's called food prep area, so I think it's in your ordinance, the parking space is.
So the 180 is only the food prep
Food
area.
prep area.
And that's the way the calculation works. for
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Anybody else for the architect?
I do have a question.
Sure.
The exterior signs that are mounted on the wall, will they be lighted or not?
I am not quite familiar. I thought the one on the building was probably going to be replaced just in kind.
Okay, I don't remember if they're lit. Paul, do you know if they're lighted signs?
I don't recall.
I don't think so. And do you have any proposed changes of lighting on the property itself, on the lot and everywhere?
None that we have planned, no.
The signage, I'll talk to the applicant as far as illumination. I imagine it has to be illuminated somehow. I imagine.
And we believe that the sign, the awning has lighting, down lighting on it, which will illuminate the sign, so the sign itself will not be lit. It will be lit by.
And you have a picture of this or any drawing so that we can see it?
I have a picture on our plan, on the site plan, designating the size.
You have like a rendering of the awning with the lights or anything like that?
I have a photo of the existing sign that was there previously. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Well, no, he's talking about an awning.
No, it's your stop, it's
It's a stop zone, I'm sorry, awning is probably wrong word, that's all. It's the existing stop, yep, we're not adding.
I guess so. To be clear, we're not changing during the for some the sign, but in terms of lighting and everything else, it's cool. Either way,
I, for one, would like to see a plan where that waiting area and the Dunkin' Donuts lobby function. I'm not convinced that 5 chairs, I respect what you're saying.
Okay.
But I'm not convinced that 5 chairs can be fit in there to begin with. And I'm not necessarily convinced that 5 chairs would be enough if you're doing 40 cars on a Saturday. And 80% of them show up within a peak period. I don't know what that peak period is, maybe the traffic engineer knows what that peak period is. But I would like, it seems to be simple enough for you to create a space plan on how that common area works, because it's not clear to me. You're cutting back the counter here, you're sticking in chairs there. It'd be easy enough to create a plan for us to see it on.
Well, that's certainly, we could develop that and share that.
So the sign is not lit. I'm just looking at it right now. It's not lit. Okay.
And doing so, like us, if we're coming back to that, we can show the sign.
And I'm gonna be, again, for the traffic engineer, a little bit of a dog with a bone on this directional signage. And how this site works functionally. You have one greeter, but you got some people entering from Leamington Road, you got some people entering to the right, the pumps, you got some people just pulling in and parking and wandering around looking where the greeter is gonna be. I'd like to see some signage that reinforces your function, because you do have multiple operations here. They're all gonna be going on simultaneously. And as Louis said, there's been near accidents. I live across the street, basically. I was there 5 minutes before Lou was there this morning, getting my coffee. So there's a lot of things going on, and I think signage can support that, or it could perpetuate an existing problem.
So my initial theory was that we work signage out with the engineering as a condition of approval. Since I think we're going to come back to this, there's some real issues still with the interior, the interior layout of the common area, the waiting area, with respect to the signage, with respect to maybe some other things that come up with testimony regarding circulation. We'll take a circulation as part of that, plus we'll have assigning records.
I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned about circulation on the property too, and how we're gonna exit from the property.
I would like to make you comfortable with the fact that it's gonna work. So the good news is it sounds like it's going to be able to do that. We want to make sure. Here at the end, we'll have testimony for a recent point in time. We'll get into some questions in this year. We'll get out whatever other issues you have, and we'll come back and explain the rest of it.
Anything else from Mr. Shaw from the board?
One quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
About bathrooms on the site. I guess right now you only have one that the public has
Exterior.
access to, that's on the exterior of the building, right? And then there's another one I guess that Jiffy Lube will probably be using exclusively to the left of the base spaces, because am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then there's also one upstairs. Is anybody going to be using that at any point?
Which one is it? I'm sorry.
There's another bathroom up on the second floor. I don't know if that is anybody, I just was curious as to how about, so we're up there. Like if people are waiting for their car, I guess they're probably gonna have to use the existing one that's outside.
We have just for the record, we have SCH3 on the screen right now.
Right.
So to answer that question, the bathroom upstairs, I'm not sure the customers are allowed to go upstairs.
I wouldn't think.
So I wouldn't count on that bathroom to be used by any other than the employees if they are up there.
So they would be limited to the one that you access from the right side of the building behind Dunkin' Donuts.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Okay, anybody else?
I did have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I did have a question, Mr. Shaw, could you show the steps that go down to the pit?
The pit, yeah.
Yeah. Those steps that go down, how does the worker go into the pit from those steps?
It's the way you see the door Yeah, right there. So if you look at the down arrow from the pit on the top, they come up from the pit.
Right.
And then on the top where you see a door, as you come, yeah, that right there, they come out there and then come into the, on the upper level.
But how do they go from the stairway to the pit?
Tom, the pit is the
Yeah.
black outline on that last sketch.
This one here, right?
No,
Yeah, but
So
the
what's-
black outline is the entire pit.
When they get to the bottom of the pit, it's that 4 foot, so that's what they.
Right.
That is.
so you're coming in,
So above their head is this metal floor?
yes,
This slab is not cut out except for those two.
No, apparently
narrower.
That's what we were just talking
That's what you said, but I'm trying to understand. So if you want to walk from here to
to the opening.
it's a slab, there's a slit cut out into the floor on both sides for all 4 bays. So if you go back to the other plans, the vertical rectangle that you see, that's a hole in the floor.
So,
The rest of it is a floor.
so what's the clearance between the bottom of the pit and the
Understood.
bottom of that slab?
So, yeah, so it's 6'5" to the structure itself.
Okay,
And then you would have about 18 inches or 12 inches of structure, because that is where you need to support that slab.
so there's 6.5 feet and then there's,
It's 6'5", total about 6'5".
From the floor of the pit to the underside of the slab where the cars are, or to the underside of the
The
steel that's
structure.
supporting the slab?
The structure,
The steel, yeah.
steel
So
structure?
Steel is what?
Steel structure.
12, 15 inches deep?
we haven't designed that yet. Probably, it could vary, depends on 8 inches, 10 inches, or 18
So,
inches.
so between the structure, there's gonna be 7 plus almost 8 feet of clear. Slab to
No.
slab.
Well, we don't have that much space. If I'm not mistaken, the beam's not going to be more than 10 inches.
So 6'5" plus 10 inches, 7'3".
Most of it is covered by the beam supporting the opening. So you just imagine the slit that's cut out. You'll have beams on both sides, crossover beams. So it's really not habitable.
All
When
right,
we,
so now I have another job for you, framing diagram.
well, but if this board approves the application, obviously, then we go into detailed design. The structural design is a task on its own. And that's why previously it was testified that we did do boring tests and establish the bearing capacity of the
So
soil.
you envision vertical purlins between steel that's running across the space.
Correct. So the way we calculate heights, if by building code or any other way, it's the headroom that somebody would have to walk under. So you can't dodge under the beams, because if you look at this narrow slit that's cut out into the floor,
Yeah.
you almost have to dodge under to go the other side. So it's the way the clearances are calculated, they're under the structure. Because it's going to be full of
And the
structure.
6'5" limitation is the clear height, Paul?
Yes.
Okay. But in
So
actuality,
you can artificially hang a soffit at the bottom of the steel. Yeah. once.
What I'm trying to get at from Mr. Shaw is this entire area that I'm outlining from the dotted line, you said bold lines, I guess. That's going to be excavated
Yeah, the dark,
entirely down to something like 7.5 feet down.
Yeah.
Removed, and a structure is going to be placed over that entire pit area. As you described, steel. The whole thing is steel, or?
Yeah, the floor is going to be metal deck and concrete.
And because that's all excavated, that means it's possible for the person walking down the stairs to walk over to the terrace. Correct. Now, in all of this work, you're doing all this work, did you ever think about just move the bays over 2 bays and expand your retail area? Because it sounds like that other bay isn't even needed, and your bathroom situation is very poor, to say the least. You don't even have a men's and women's bathroom. So is there are there some thoughts that you've had to reconfigure this and make it even better?
Well, we worked quite a bit in detail with Jiffy Lube and tried to work with what is there existing and make the space workable and without making too many changes. Because if you start shifting this in the middle of the bay, it almost becomes non-functional. So I believe there was quite a bit of work put in together between Jiffy Lube, the expert that they have in-house, engineers and designers. And this layout we felt was the most efficient one, looking at the existing space.
Okay, well, if you're looking at it, the bathroom situation is poor.
It is.
It needs an upgrade, no matter what. There's only one for now, many people waiting. And I don't know, it just looks like you have this whole other fourth set of bays that
Yeah.
are debatable as to their need. And you're here to modernize, so if you're talking to one another, just please consider talking about that.
What is the room under the, or just above the plan of the stair to the second floor? What is that big room?
Right where your cursor is now.
Yeah,
Sir?
yeah.
The fixed
No, no.
cursor on the room.
Right.
To the right.
Yeah.
To the right.
Yes, it's on the upper
There's a
right hand
doorway
side
there, too.
of the door.
Oh, this room over here?
Yeah.
What is
That's
that?
where oil- There's, if you go in that room up there today, it has several oil tanks in there. There's antifreeze tank, there's used oil, there's new oil, it's got several.
So that would be Jiffy Lube space for them to store oil and
Right.
Waste oil.
waste oil and all that stuff. Yes. So somebody comes and collects the waste oil and the little, well, you have all your other oils and hoses, right? The new oil that you're putting into the cars. That's all hosed into the. So we use the car, right? So what we've used are existing bulk, what we call bulk tanks for oil, and yes, there's hoses and hoses that are already. And the tanks are in that room too? The fresh oil tanks are in that room. The fresh oil and the waste oil? Yes. Okay, separate tanks. There's no room to put a bathroom in that room? Not. We'd have to reconfigure.
Not sure how you would access it.
Well, I could
From the
access this
forbidden
one
zone,
from
Tim,
the back.
Excuse me?
or from the exterior,
Yeah,
Or-
like the other end.
I mean, the people are gonna be there, what, the average lube time is what, 15 minutes?
Our average customer is on
Yeah.
site less than 30 minutes.
Have to hold it.
15 minutes.
yeah, really. Yeah, it just doesn't seem totally adequate. I mean, it doesn't even seem like Dunkin' Donut has,
Well, they don't have any.
have any use
Exterior.
at all for their employees. And then you only got this little outside bathroom and
One other thought I had.
doesn't make your customers very comfortable. That's,
The seven,
Restroom there.
yeah.
It's gonna be.
the seventh bay that you have there, that basically is not usable, really, for your quick oils because of the staircase. How attached are you to that? I mean, as far as needing it for use, or the area that's left over by the stair, maybe reposition it in such a way where you can get some of that space back for some of these extra things that you need, like another bathroom. Does
Well,
that make sense? Like if you were to move that over one or something and have the stair on the right side and just maybe have a little bit extra room there that you're not using in that bay that you're killing with the stair. Maybe something like that.
I mean, it,
I just,
Tom, is it our job to,
Your job to decide whether,
consider like customer accommodations for this tenant? I mean, isn't it up to the customer to decide, hey, I'm not gonna go there, they don't have a bathroom kind of thing? Is it us to decide that they need more bathroom?
it's your discretion to give them advice on what you would base the approval on if you're ready to give it. I'm not saying that you do it. It's just-
No, I mean, it's just offering a suggestion,
I just want to add one quick comment on this. One, what we do, we have to meet with building codes. So it's certainly, what we're proposing will be in conformance with the building code. Now, building and plumbing code. Now, the other thing that we've seen in our experience, when we start building big bathrooms, it really attracts nuisance.
The wrong people.
People from all over the
True.
place will stop by, use it.
Mm.
They
Mhm.
do nasty stuff.
Mhm.
If you make it difficult, they certainly are not going to stop here. There'll be frequent troublemakers who's going to be coming in. So it's pluses and minuses of,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to save.
Is that true for interior bathrooms as well as the exterior? I can see that point with the exterior ones, yeah.
If you have bathroom facility, and if somebody walks in, it's very difficult to say no. I think it would be, you would get all these nasty social media comments on the facility. So it's a big dilemma. I mean, stations, service stations, gas stations, all of their,
So for the
I mean, unless you go to-
there's a toilet in the garage, right?
For the employees.
For the Jiffy Lube employees in the garage. There's a bathroom upstairs for the Dunkin' Donuts employees, I guess. And then for the patrons, one exterior toilet is all you got. Unisex.
To be honest with you, customers are not going to use any of these bathrooms. They're 15 minutes, and I were calculating this, that 480 minutes, 30 cars. People are there for 16 minutes on an average, an 8-hour day. I've been to Jiffy Lube plenty of times. I'm just making a comment.
If I may, Mr. Dunn, again, operates a number of these.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
our experience with Jiffy Lube, one bathroom is sufficient. I expect that bathroom operation to be clean.
Mhm.
Something that if one of my customers wanted to use it, they have experience.
But you'd expect them to use the outside bathroom?
In the citizens, yes.
Yeah.
I also just spoke to my client, if the board feels appropriate, my client would likely be open to renovating that bathroom. and
Yes,
Making it
it's a good idea.
nicer, so, but not expanding it. I think there's a lot of nuisances involved with expanding it.
Mhm.
So I'd just like to say, one of the tenets of having to approve a variance like this is that when the use is inherently beneficial to the community, and I think we're just trying to make it as beneficial as possible, make people comfortable, and make it so that when it's approved 2 years from now, people say, gee, I'm glad they have the Jiffy Lube with the nice bathroom and waiting room.
They'll think of you, Lou.
It's helpful. The use here that both is good for my client. and good for the community.
Mhm.
And so we appreciate the input the board is giving us, and we take it to heart, and again, the condition of approval.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone else on the board? Any more questions for the architect, Tim or Steve? No, you good? Okay.
Any members of
The public, Janine, we have any public?
Is there any members of the public that have questions for
Crickets.
applicant or part of the board? There is not.
Okay, so we will close it to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to my next witness, which is Nicholas Verderisi, who's our property expert.
Good.
Questions for us.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. Verderisi was this morning qualified. Mr. Verderisi, good, there are a couple of issues that we've heard about, assessment, like the certification, site, signage for the site. Over for the board, fair report for the fact, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that board, the board has as well, which analyzed, if you could just review those issues, both the report as well as the testimony.
Yes, so we prepared an assessment. Essentially, part of it is a comparison of what was previously there. So Institute of Transportation Engineers has a publication. It's 5 volumes. It has all different types of land uses. It has 2 land uses, one that's similar to each one of the ones. So the existing and the proposed. So the existing land use that what was previously there would be most similar to what's called that as an automobile care center.
So when you look at the definition there, it's, more extensive repair type work. Then the proposed use has a specific use, quick lubrication vehicle shop, which essentially is, as you heard, 90% of the business is oil changes. So that would be where we would consider this to fall under. So the ITE as well as the NJDOT both have those land use categories. And we looked at traffic volumes associated with them. Interestingly, the automobile care center is based on square footage. The quick lube is based on the number of service bays. So we do the calculations based on those. You'll see in the report, there's one table in there that identifies peak hour trip generation. So we're looking at morning peak hours, evening peak hours on a weekday, and the midday on the weekend. Those are essentially our peak hours. So the peak of the use pretty close to those morning peak hour. It's not happening at 11 in the morning or lunchtime or 3 in the afternoon. It generally happens in the morning. Someone wants to come before work, someone comes after work, and then there's lower volumes from what I'm told from the operator. The volumes drop off. So if they get 30 or say 40 customers in a day, you're likely to see maybe 20% of them in the morning, 20% of them in the evening, then the rest of it spread through the 7 or 8 hours in the middle of the day. So what we identified, actually the numbers are from trip generation based on 7 days. We see in the morning 14 trips in and 14 out. Some of those may be employees, some are customers.
Did you do any bar chart? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you
No
do
bar
any
charts.
chart analysis about what that sine curve might look like, or what a bar chart would look like over the course of the?
I didn't, because all I really care about is the morning peak hour and the evening, because at 10 in the morning, no one cares about how much traffic comes in and out of properties because the volume's so much lighter on the adjacent roadways. So we just look at those peaks. So our peaks are essentially when the peaks are occurring on the roadway. So we looked at those. So we want to look at the worst case. So when we do the comparison, and same thing with the previous use, most of the people come in the morning, they're dropping their cars off 8 o'clock in the morning, want to leave their car. They're all leaving their car. They likely have someone else follow them in. So a lot of times they have 2 cars come and then they leave. So they come in and out in the morning. That's why the numbers aren't that different. When you look at my table and my report in the morning, the existing use generated 19 trips. So that's total in and out.
Is there any way we can share that up on the screen, your report? Do you have a copy of it? I think maybe Tim and.
We can.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That would help. Thank you.
Well, when you're looking for that, the traditional repair shop distinguished from maintenance, right, is typically by appointment. I call in advance, I'm having trouble with my car, I'm bringing it in on Tuesday, et cetera, et cetera. That's all scheduled. I'm sure the operators try to even that stuff out as much as they possibly can.
Sure. But
This-
I know, at least for me, I always drop off first thing in the morning.
But for this.
I gotta get to work.
But for this, it's,
This is in and out.
come as you may.
But the total trips, when you look at the daily trips, it's only about 10 to 12% higher for the quick lube. The quick lube gets more customers, so it's a different type of use. They're gonna get more customers, but they're not staying there.
And that's the same time as the peak for Dunkin' Donuts, though, right?
So the drop off, then once you get past 10 o'clock and then you get our evening peak, the Dunkin' Donuts has fallen off already at that point.
But that morning, overlaps with the Dunkin' Donuts morning.
And so did the automobile care. Their morning peak overlapped with the
So
Dunkin'.
what your quick lube numbers tell you? Maybe you have it, I don't see it because, I'm zooming here, but don't you have data that says a quick lube usually has X amount of cars per hour? Because I can't believe it's only 30, to be honest with you.
Share this.
March 20. Yes, for the people on, no one's seeing it yet, so you're not being left out.
All right.
We're about to,
I'm a middle child, so I always feel that way.
yeah,
With respect to your comment about the 30, that came from Mr. Hill.
There you go.
Yeah.
Who based it upon his experiences at the stations that he has in New Jersey. If you'd like to have some more testimony on that, I'd certainly like to clarify your concern about that.
Mr. Henry, can you zoom in on that table?
But the 30 was based upon experience. What Mr. Gerber
Getting
was
large.
testifying to study.
A little bit. My old eyes can see it. There you go. Good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we'll testify to that.
so the top, so this table 1, which is in the report on page 2, the top row is the NJDOT trip generation for auto repair shop of the size 6,800 square feet or so. So you'll see there in the morning trips, so there's ins and outs, the total is 19. In the evening, it's 24. For the 7 service bay auto repair shop, again, there's 7 from any, I've been to Jiffy Lube a fair share of times. I don't know that I've seen ones that have that many bays. Most of them seem to have 4, 5, or 6 bays.
But this is an auto repair shop. Is that Quick Lube or is that separate?
So the Quick Lube is the second. It says auto repair. The second one is 7 service bay Quick Lube.
Okay, that is Quick Lube, but that's not auto repair, because I think you said there's a difference between the two.
Top row is the existing use. The middle row in that table is the proposed Jiffy Lube.
So according to that, you'll see 14 cars coming in.
And 14
in
exiting.
the AM, so from 8 o'clock until 12 in the afternoon, there's gonna be 14 cars coming in. just for the-
No, so that's the 1 hour, the peak 1 hour. So based on 7 service bays. So it's all based on the number of service bays. So there's a bunch of data out there and traffic counts, and they were done at all different ones that have different numbers of bays.
Gotcha.
Four bays.
Just for the Quick Lube.
Peak hour.
That's the 1 hour, yes, in the morning, the highest hour.
8 to 9 or 7 to 8 or 8 to 9?
Yeah, likely 8 to 9 or so, yes. So we project based on historical data of that type of use. You'd have 14 coming in, 14 exiting for 28 total vehicles. Just so you understand, so I've been studying this site since 2013, so we've done a lot of existing traffic counts. Back in 2013, we counted the site in the morning, the total volume, most of it's dedicated to the gas and the Dunkin', 201 total trips in the morning. So, so the changeover here would be 251 and then add 9. So you're gonna go from 251 to 260. You're never gonna be able to tell the difference between 251 and 260 cars coming on and off the property.
The biggest thing Saturdays, according to this.
On Saturday,
Yeah, okay.
we've never studied Saturday. The volumes on the roadway are lighter here. The morning gets, you get your Dunkin' traffic in the morning. The peak typically for the Jiffy Lube is happening later in the morning. On Sunday, I think they don't even open till 10 if they open on Sunday. So that happens after the morning rush of Dunkin'. So in the evening, we're only looking at 8 added to what we counted in 2013 on and off the property in an hour of 208. So you're going to go essentially from 208 to 216. Again, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. It's about a 3% increase in the volume on the site. So if no one goes there, it's going to say, oh my God, the Quick Lube opened and it's so different than it was before. You're actually going to say, wow, it's almost looks like there's no one there because there's not going to be anyone parked. We're going to have 10 to 12 cars associated with the Jiffy Lube parked where the
the repair he probably had 30 spaces occupied at any given time when.
Yeah, okay, but that's parking. I mean, I'm just trying to understand per hour, based on your chart here, how many cars, and I don't care about out, because if they're gonna come in and get their oil change, they gotta get out, obviously. How many visits will they have per hour, per day?
Yeah, you're seeing the per hour on there in the high hour.
So what is that? Circle that for, just put the cursor on. Is it the 14?
Where it says total, you have 19 in the existing and 28 in the future. In the PM, it's 24 under the total, 30
Okay.
increase of 8.
So you're saying now that 19 cars were going to that auto repair, the old place,
Correct.
every hour?
1 hour, the peak morning.
No, it just-
We don't care about traffic engineering. I don't care about how many people come in at 11 o'clock because the site, there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot going on the roads. We want to make sure, hey, during the peak hours, when your roads are heavy, when the gas and the Dunkin' are heavy, what's going to change? And what's going to change is you're going to go from 251 cars to 260 in the morning. So you're not going to really see a difference. Then in the evening, that number goes from 208 to 216. You don't see a difference. On the daily's not on that table, but I have it because we run that number every time we do trip generation. So for the auto repair, the previous use, the projection is 241 trips associated with it. So projection for the quick lube is 280.
241 per week, per what?
The full day, the 24-hour period of a day.
So
So you're only looking at, what is that? Maybe less than 20%.
So, Mr. Verderisi, you could, just two things. You're referring to 19 trips. That includes trips to the site and leaving the site altogether. So that would potentially be two trips would effectively be one car coming in and out of the site during the weekend, correct?
Yeah, so the 19 there, it's a table. It says in, out, total. So 11 is in, 8 is out, 19 is total.
So the total cars in that scenario, visiting the site, the maximum number of cars coming in or visits would be 11 during that peak hour.
Yeah.
And then in the second line, the number of cars coming into the site in the use clothing will be 14 cars coming in, 14 cars leaving the site
Yes.
during the hour.
And the obvious reason why there's less outs from the previous use is some of the cars stayed behind. Where in the proposed use, you come on and you go in that hour, so.
Right.
Took more than an hour to complete the repair.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm focused on is the incremental 9 on the 250 is 3.5%, and that's what you're saying with the parking notice.
Yes,
Correct.
and that's, yes,
And that includes in and out of the site.
and so
And then maybe that
DOT,
fraction is smaller,
sorry, repeat that.
so a 9 over, 9 is the incremental over the 250 base, a 3.5% increase in the morning.
Yes,
And then the evening is 8 on,
208, so it came out to 3.9%.
so that's a little bit higher. in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah, less than 4%. So NJDOT and ITE consider, what they consider, hey, you should study this new use, or you should study this intersection if it generates 100 new trips. Our site generates 8 and 9. So we're not even in the ballpark of a significant increase.
Trips, but how about that percentage? What percentage is it?
So they used to do a 10% daily. They actually took that out of the requirements because they're more concerned, again, like I said earlier, with peak hours. They're not concerned with it. A use that has some weird 2 o'clock afternoon peak, great, because those are great uses. They don't generate traffic while everyone else is on the road.
And the Saturday is not first thing in the morning, the Saturday peak is not in the morning?
That Saturday is gonna happen later in the morning when, you know it. And anywhere you go on, I love going places on Saturday morning because no one's there. So I go and I do my business. So I'm one of those, but most of the activity happens later when everyone's up and at 'em and doing their thing.
And just one more thing to clarify, and Mr. Walter asked a question, I'm not sure you got an answer. The top line repair shop and the second line repair shop are both IT categories, different IT categories, is that correct?
Yeah, the top one, as I mentioned, so the top one, the actual definition, the actual name of it is Automobile Care Center. And the second one, the proposed, is called Quick Lubrication Vehicle Shop. That's where you would fit the existing and proposed uses when you're projecting traffic volumes.
So there's separate studies that analyze, that come up with numbers that are based upon the studies that were done in the way the uses operate, is that correct?
Correct.
So that when you're looking at the top number, it's done for what was there, the repair shop that's there, type of repair shop that's there today. And the second one is type of repair shop that's proposing, which may have a different flow of traffic.
Correct.
Okay, and so it's not an apples to apples per se, but it's taking the same space and looking at it from two different ways to operate.
Yes.
Okay, what I'm confused by is Mr. Hill said they get 3 cars an hour. That's how many they service, 3.5 cars an hour, based on 30 a day. You're coming up and saying it's going to be 15, correct me if I'm wrong in there, I'm sorry, 14 per hour in the AM and 18 per hour in the PM. Is that correct? Am I seeing this wrong?
I believe what Mr. Hill was talking about was in the day, he gets 30 cars. In the
30
PM,
cars.
he is 14, so maybe if there's 16 cars that come in during the rest of the day, it's not, again, Mr. Berg recently, just to clarify, was testifying, is that the traffic differs all during the day. At the most intense time, and the most peak time they referred to, the anticipation would be 14 cars. Mr. Hill's testimony is that during the entire day, he expects to get about.
Okay, so that would say just, okay, so from 1 hour, the highest intensity was 14, and in the PM, the highest intensity was 18. That's just 2 hours making up more than 30 cars that Mr. Hill said you see all day. Listen, I'm not concerned about the traffic on the road. I think it can absorb that. I'm worrying about the queuing at the facility.
Yeah,
I can't believe it's only gonna be 3. I think there's gonna be more than 3, 4, 5. I've seen Jiffy Lubes that have 10
Morning.
cars waiting.
Some of those morning and evening trips are also the employees. So they come in the morning, they're in that early hour. So you're including those in those numbers as well. Again, like I said, this is based on 7 service bays. The data in Institute of Transportation Engineers has some that are 4 bays and some that are 5 bays. As you heard an operator mention, he doesn't necessarily use all 7 at any given time, but this is, so what happens is you could have if this facility had 4 service bays, I would now then tell you the trips are going to be, 4/7 of that number. So let's say half for the sake of, so I'd say there's 15 trips in the morning and there's 7 or 8 total customers.
Okay. But your data is for an average.
That then doesn't mean it's going to do 50% more business or 80% more business than 4 bays. It's just going to be a way for him to process people quicker, not have a stack. So it's actually better to have more bays because you're not going to have some of those issues you were talking about of if we only had 4 and 7 people came, now 3 people have to leave their car outside or park it. So having 7 gives flexibility to the operator to be able to pull people in and out quicker.
I'm all for that. I just don't see, I'm confused by a 3.5 or 4 per hour to these numbers. It's just, they're triple numbers. I just wonder what's going to be going on there with people waiting to get their car serviced. That's all. I don't understand these numbers. They seem so much higher.
Mr. Hill, I'd just like to recall, just because this is an issue that's on your mind, I'd like to just have Mr. Hill address with his testimony. We can have him directly some of these concerns, just to see if we can tie together the testimony. So, Mr. Hill?
Yes, my number wasn't based on its traffic. I was giving you what our average Jiffy Lube store does, which is 30 cars. We have stores certainly that do more than 30. We have those that do less. On average, it's 30.
And the ones that do more, what are those?
I'd say, my stores, my largest traffic store is actually Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, does about 70 cars a day. I have cars, live in Ohio, unfortunately, I do about 9 to 10 cars.
I mean, do you base that on traffic counts from the highway 202 Lamington.
So the 30 is basically, it's just an average of my existing network, so it's not a study.
And if we wanted to be more detailed, how would, you know,
I think based on existing competition and the market and the studies that we looked at, that we think this would be a good score for us.
How much, I didn't hear that. How much do you think, you've seen that, you've seen the intersection there, you see the amount of cars. What do you think would be fair number?
I would be disappointed if we did less than 30.
Okay, so we're over 30, okay, all right.
Is there?
Listen, my concern is just the queuing, Mr. Hill. I think you've been fair, but I'm just worried about.
One at a time.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
sorry.
Tim, go ahead. We didn't hear you.
I'm just concerned with the amount of cars going to be there waiting to get serviced and the amount of people. That's all. I think it's going to be, yeah, you're looking probably 50, 60 cars at least in a day. So it'll be double that. It'll be like 6 an hour. I think it's still manageable. I just want to make sure that it's being handled there at the facility, that it's not a problem, as, you know, other, you know, board members said, the problem there with traffic.
We were to do 60 cars, which I mean, this is I'm very excited about.
I think so.
But we, you know, again, with having 7 days, as discussed, having 7 parking spots for lack of proper term, I apologize. That's really manageable for us. Again, our process is to bring an oil change car and you're in and out in 15 minutes. That's all we're doing.
Okay.
They're serviced and we move you off of those pit bays to another bay. We relocate the car to manage to keep the flow going. You know, that's what our folks are trained to do. That's what our managers are, is for 40 years. There's a Jiffy Lube process of who does what job at the car. We have an upper bay technician, a lower bay technician, the customer service attendant, the greeter, the site manager. You know, they all have, we have an activity board at all our stores, which lays out, you know, everybody's roles and responsibilities. So, you know, not to brag, but we're pretty good at this. I mean, it's got a process. You know, in fact, we're held accountable by they come and rate us mystery shops, so those big things.
All right. I mean, you got a Dunkin' Donuts there too. So you got a lot of cars coming in and out, and then people, you know, it's going to be prime time. It's going to be crazy over there. So.
Mr. Hill, we already get 60 cars a day, which is going to support that clientele with the 7 days that are closed.
Yes.
All right.
There's plenty of parking on the site to accommodate those 14 cars during that peak.
Yes.
Right, because you've got 44, you got 8 more than you need, you got 44 to begin with. Gas station isn't using, it's a 20, it uses a couple.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest is gonna be the ebb and flow of Dunkin' Donuts customers.
Yeah, I would say, I think you said, or you've had experience with some of the other stated, we would actually more space more than here and typical Jiffy Lube to manage those issues.
Question, so you have, let's say at any given time, 4 or 5 bays will be used.
Yes.
And you have 7 parking spots. So let's say it's 5 bays, 7 parking, you have 12 active customers, so to speak. When those 7 spots are filled, do you continue to take more customers and have them wait longer and longer? Or do you ask them to come back an hour later? How do you do it when you're kind of filled up?
So when we greet the customer, we'll advise where they are kind of in line, or, you know, in that example, you're 12th in line. For us, that would probably be your wait's going to be over an hour. You're happy to wait if you'd like to come into our lobby, make yourself comfortable, or if you'd like to come back again because we're not an appointment business, come back later or another day if you prefer. Kind of leave that up to them, but we usually, to answer your question operationally, we agree or we'll have that discussion with them. What we find, right, is if I don't have that discussion and you come inside and it's an hour and a half later, you're like, what happened to my 15-minute oil change?
Right, so my guess is that you probably almost want to discourage stacking too many people or cars waiting in the parking lot, because you don't want people waiting an hour just to get in.
Our typical customer won't wait an hour to get a 15-minute oil change. The reason they want 15-minute oil change is they want it done in 15 minutes. So it's a fair challenge. So again, not the kind of typical customer would probably in that scenario leave and come back later in the day or another day. And we would lie today, if we come back today at 1 in the afternoon, we usually don't have much of a wait if any wait at that time. So we had that conversation. You're right, that's just what happened.
Anybody else? Do you have more for the traffic or, I mean, I'd like to see some circulation on the outside too.
Yes,
And
so I
how
was
we
going to
talk
talk about that a little bit. So I think we're going
Yes.
to put the site plan up and talk about,
Right,
as we mentioned, we did not propose any signage. We were trying to, minimize signage. We, as Jim mentioned, we've been here a couple times on this property. So we were trying to utilize what was already there. So there's a couple things I guess you're not seeing here, and sounds like we're coming back. So we're going to throw a little more paint on the ground that you're not seeing that we would have done probably at building permit time, of some arrows pointing into the building on the back side, arrows pointing out on the pavement on the front side of the building. So when you pulled up, you would see the arrow on the pavement pointing out. Would be a pretty sure, clear sign that you're not pulling in on that side. There's also some building mounted signage. I saw the actual, and we can provide it at the next meeting, what the sign looks like. It has you've seen it, there's an emoji of it. It's a red with a white bar. It's kind of a do not enter type thing. And it says exit or do not enter on the bottom. If you had 4 bays, we'd likely have 2 on the front, 2 square feet. It's red. So it's gonna, be pretty obvious it's red. That's not your way to go in. Then on the back side of the building, there's signage where it says, I wrote down the exact language. It says, welcome on it, and then it says, we will take it from here. And that's a little sign that goes by each door to kind of tell people, hey, that's where you're going in. And there's gonna be arrows that at each bay, a short striped arrow. Again, we'll add that to the plan when we come back. Also, we'll hatch out the area, like it's kind of where the concrete pad already is on the exit part. There's a concrete pad there. So we're going to hatch that in some way with the arrows to kind of make it clear that, someone shouldn't be using it for loading, or, that there's going to be some activity of people exiting there. So if someone came from the gas pumps, they wouldn't drive right along the face of the building, that it would be hatched out. It's 30 feet wide there. So we'll kind of push them away from the door. So when someone's pulling out, there's not going to be any conflicts with people, driving across the face of the building. Also, we're happy to add some signage on the property to kind of get people to the back of the building. One of the things, I think this might have been something we even proposed back in the day when we were proposing a different use. When you came in off of Lamington and you kind of came to that little fork in the road where you can go to the rear or the front on the left side of the page, we'll put something in that grass area there, very small, just directional, that tells you that if you look to the left there, you would go to the
So
back.
you're gonna direct people to the outer edges of
Outer.
to access.
Yes, yes. So if you're coming off of 206,
You're coming up to a second.
You're essentially-
There to your right.
passing on the right side and driving around the back side.
So will there be arrows showing that, or are there arrows?
We
on the
don't
pavement?
have them on there. We don't have it for Duncan. But we can surely work something out. We can probably get a concept to your engineer to get, we'll have to get our plan over to him.
So
and
now
we
that I
can
have
work
this
something
with
out.
Please take that.
But with that one.
You're off the screen.
No, it doesn't show. You would need a green.
Please don't.
Oh, come on back.
Don't shine it until it's on.
I'm gonna stay to the right here, right? I'm gonna stay to the right to access off of 206.
Yes.
And then over here, if I enter from this point,
Yeah.
you're not gonna let me bear to the right. You're gonna instruct us to go left when we get to
Yes.
that point where your cursor is.
Yes.
Only for Jiffy Lube though. right?
Yeah, we're gonna put a small Jiffy Lube there.
And I think you can accomplish all this just by reallocating the signage, quantities, size limitations, et cetera.
On that island is already a useless no parking sign that we don't need because we're not over parked anymore. So we'll remove that one, and
you just
that's
said
probably
you
about
go-
2 square feet, and we'll move
Right
it
now,
over
the
there.
plan says 3 in front and 3 on the back, you can go to 2 and 2 and pick up more signs
Yes.
here.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing that I think needs to be more thought out and articulated.
We can, we heard all the questions,
Yeah.
and
We
we're
need to-
going to add that to the plan for.
Yeah, make it more appropriate for this use.
Sorry,
Yeah.
to show on
Yeah.
the TV. I didn't take a note of it. I apologize, I was gonna add also some, the FMC, the same on those bay entrances, I didn't mention it earlier. They have, we have basically a yellow chain that links between bays, so if you were to not look at our signs, which, right, never happens, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
But, we have that up there again for the safety of the person traffic. So it's, it's a whole kick that comes off as it goes on, but we keep it up
Uh-huh,
to keep folks from driving in or out of the place.
that's a good idea.
It shouldn't necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, would it make sense, since your employees are gonna be taking the cars out of the front bay, is kind of maybe direct them or tell the customers to go out to Lamington rather than out that front, right onto 2022, I'm sorry, right onto 206 there? That way, we don't have any people coming out. I think, Carol, you mentioned somewhere people come out of there and try to make a left going north on 206. Would it make sense to try to direct everyone over onto Lamington and then they can, deal with the light there?
Operationally, I agree, and we would probably pull the cars if you're looking at from there to basically a concrete apron. So we
Yeah.
would- you want to be clear too, we're not taking the cars, we pull them out all the way out and dropping them like right in the middle of traffic there. We'd edge them out enough onto the apron so they're not walking into the bays. And they can
Okay.
still, but to your point, operationally, our CSA walking into the car would direct them. And I would recommend that there's painted arrows.
To the right, yeah.
Pretty different.
How about could we also have a no left turn there? As you come out so that people are just partly directed by the arrows and
That would be great.
partly cautioned against the turn?
I think that's a question of the DOT left turn restriction that already exists on the site. I just have a question because I had a lot of questions in my letter about how this is gonna work. And most of them went away when you said that the employees are gonna drive the cars in and drive the cars out. Yes, I think that's great. But what I don't understand is when the vehicle is done, I think you just said it gets pulled out partially from the bay and the customer gets back in. I thought that's what the 10-minute parking stalls in the back. We drop the car
Cars are
back
back
there.
for the overflow that we can't take into the bay right away.
But then why not earlier 10 minutes? Because they're showing us 10-minute parking stalls. I thought that's where. if you took
I
a
think
vehicle out, you park
it's
it.
probably more, I think 10 minutes is, I don't think it's going to say 10 minutes on the sign. What it is, it's a short-term parking. So we don't want like an employee or someone from Dunkin' to mistakenly park in there. So we're kind of identifying it as a short-term parking stall without writing Jiffy Lube, because then someone might consider that a sign.
The person leaving, obviously, we're gonna pull the car out, crash them out, walk them to their car, and then they're leaving, there isn't, they're not.
Right, but by the time you pull that car out, he's going to 206. And it makes a harder turn for him to make the right to go over
Well,
lane.
I think that point brought up earlier about, making that direction and understanding, we can also, as we discussed earlier, if it's preferred, we can take that car around to the parking spots that is showing there.
Yeah.
If you feel that
That would
management
be
better,
better.
I'm happy to do that, that's. not
Yeah,
an issue operationally.
that's what I was thinking, get it so.
Yeah.
it kind of.
Operationally, that's not an issue for us.
I think it's better because then you don't have cars staging that main circulation out.
Right.
Yeah,
Move it over.
Yeah, so those 3 spaces there are plenty. We only have the ability to exit 4 at any time, so.
And probably cars leaving at the same time. it's like one.
Would it be a problem in the back there? I know you just mentioned short-term parking signs. Paul, is there a problem, or would the board have a problem with them saying Jiffy Lube, Jiffy Lube? 'Cause otherwise, the Jiffy Lube cars, you kind of want them there staging there. You don't want them all over the place. If it just says short-term, Dunkin' people are everyone's gonna be there. I mean, is there a problem having it, a small sign that says Jiffy Lube, like standby?
Sign is behind the building, you're not gonna see it.
No,
The sign that's above ground says short-term parking in as a pavement marking with the Jiffy Lube logo, then you don't have the big logo. I frankly don't think either one is a big problem because it's behind the building.
Yeah.
I think it would help you manage the situation there too, rather than having cars all over the place.
Yeah. Another question for Mr. Traffic Engineer.
Yeah, we can,
Can we scroll that plan up a little bit?
I just, let me answer this. We can, just answer that. We can do that. We can put something on the pavement. Maybe just something on the pavement might be enough, and then you don't have to have 10 sticks sticking
Yeah,
out of the
I think
ground
that's
in the
a good
back.
idea.
That's a great idea.
Not really. I'm all for the less signage, the
I
better.
am too.
As long as it's enough to get people around. So, yeah, some paint that just says Jiffy Lube or,
On the
Jiffy
parking.
Lube
Our typical
logo.
directional sign, like standard would have the Jiffy Lube logo on it. We understand a lot of towns, people say, well, that counts as branding, so we don't have to have it on there, but to your point, it makes sense to have it. That's how our signs typically come with a Jiffy Lube, kind of the J button, picture and then the message.
So are we talking sign or something on the pavement?
I think we're gonna go with something on the pavement.
Okay, all right.
Too. I mean, I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I like that.
You put reserved for Jiffy Lube on those spots, that wouldn't count towards your square inches.
Or we'll call it like Jiffy Lube drop off, Jiffy Lube pickup on the side, the 3 spots adjacent. So that
That wouldn't count towards your signage, though.
right, so we just paint it literally Jiffy Lube on the actual pavement, it wouldn't be counted as a.
But even if you put parking signs, like parking signs, I don't think that counts into your parking, into your signage calculation.
That's what I'm saying. No, but it creates clutter.
Yeah, it's more clutter and more.
I saw the chair definitely shake her head. She
Yeah.
likes the striping better, so
Yeah, I think it's a good
I'm gonna go
idea.
there with the striping.
It's less clutter, it looks neater.
Nobody backs their car and bends them over.
Yeah, right, when they're down before they're up.
Constantly.
And not, where we're going with this, when we do come back to the next meeting, we will have a plan to incorporate all this and fine tune it if need be.
Yeah, so we can see all the signs in total, yeah.
What is the expert's opinion on the one choke point there? You're talking about exiting the site now on Leamington Road.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, also still on
Gas
to
station, gas station people leave that way, Dunkin' Donuts people leave that way, and Jiffy Lube, a certain number of Jiffy Lube people are gonna leave that way. As much as you want to encourage people to go onto Leamington Road, nobody wants to, necessarily do that unnecessarily unless you're going west on Leamington Road, right? So lower,
That's south.
206 side. Can we see the access to 206? Scroll it up.
You can move it.
There, it's
It's a lag.
5-second delay, so.
It's too long.
That really effectively is one car at a time entering traffic.
Correct.
As a traffic expert, you don't see that as something that needs to be managed?
I think one of the things that's gonna help is putting those people that exit now further south, because they're gonna park south of the building, so they're more likely to go, especially if they, they're gonna go that way. Because now they're gonna have to actually go back in that direction, come back out. So even people that make a right on
Plus the fact
206
is,
might go
in the
that way.
morning with the queuing at the light, there's a bunch of rude people that won't let you in.
Okay, and there's always
Now you
the,
have 2 and 3 cars backing up, and as I mentioned that, not to be sarcastic, I mentioned that because now you have 2 and 3 cars queuing to even get off-site in the morning.
Yeah, it's reality.
Right.
Mhm.
yeah,
And people coming off.
as far as the activity on the site, such a small percentage of it is related to the Jiffy Lube that
It's not gonna make.
no matter which way they
It's not gonna
go,
make that much worse
it isn't
than
gonna
the
change
other
what the
way.
existing people are doing. And the existing people are doing what's easiest because they pull into the gas and they come out the other driveway, right? Because they're making a right in, they're making a right
And they
out.
pull into those pumps in both directions based on where their gas tank is too. I've seen it do in both directions.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
free
people
flow.
that come from Lamington, a lot of them come in from what I'll say the wrong direction there.
Yeah, I think the more we can control
I
the
was gonna say,
traffic,
can
the
we,
better.
can we
because-
make that shoot one way out
Well-
towards Lamington?
well,
So direct everybody behind the building around?
This is what I was gonna suggest, because, I talked about those 3 stalls south of the building could be where the customers pick up. And you look at that, it's like, okay, but then the people, when they're leaving, they're backing out with the building in their way, with a blind spot. If you're over parked, you take the first two spaces next to the building, and have them no parking. Then the employee drives through to the second stall, right there. And then they're pulling forward out and basically going directly to the landing.
I think you can do that with all three of those spaces. Why not?
Yeah.
Have them all just be pull-through spaces that they're really pointing to. Now you've pretty much said,
You have to.
no one's, if you choose to go the other way, there's something wrong with you. You're definitely going.
A lot of people have. Yeah, that's a very.
We don't need three, but maybe we do the first two.
You probably just need
And
two.
we can just do those as pull-through spaces. So we'll remove the stripe in the middle. We'll put proper signage down. You know, the employees aren't going to park in there, so we'll be, I like that idea. It was an excellent idea.
Anything you can do, I think, to improve the traffic here. I mean, it's
Yep.
really bad, especially in the morning. So if we can control it more with signage or, you know, ideas, I think it would help. Because you've got, it's an overachievement of this site. I mean, you've got so many uses, and especially in the morning. So I think you need to just, you know, try to use some imagination to create a better situation.
Yeah, I think we can.
And then, and basically what you're saying is there wouldn't be any situations where the worker pulls the car out and waits in front of the building for the customer to come over, right? They would pull the car all the way off to the parking space and get the customer to come get their car, right?
Exactly.
So operationally,
It works.
as someone brought up before, don't have those cars wait in front of the building.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a disaster.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yes, I agree, that's fine.
And the last, one last thing. This goes back to Paul's comment about, and Steve, I think, brought it up online, is that can we have a no left turn sign there on that on the southernmost exit onto 206? Because that is,
It's a disaster.
it's crazy.
I think there already is, or there was as part of some of the prior approvals. I think it's a restricted no left.
It's not physically there.
It's not there, no.
I'd have to look through an old resolution to see if that was the case.
I think that would just be really helpful.
Well, I think so too. That's what I mean by trying to direct the traffic and manage the traffic by, you know, making people go maybe where they wouldn't normally want to go, but because it's safer and it's more,
Now, I'm usually at 10 minutes to my coffee time.
Oh, well,
well,
you're gonna have to go
another
around.
Lamington Road.
You
Right.
have to go around the other side.
Right.
Only 2 lights now.
Well, then you'll have to get up earlier.
You know, the real, excuse me, the real problem is making a left-hand turn into the property from 206 north. If I
Absolutely.
go into the property, I always take the light, go into the light, turn left on Lamington Road, turn right into the property. But the traffic, you know, because the lanes diminish from 2 lanes to 1 lane going north, I'm always waiting for an accident to happen.
Yeah, well, that's.
But I don't think we have any jurisdiction over that.
Yeah.
No, but I think we can put a no left turn there.
I have a picture.
Do that, I think so.
No,
I
so,
think- Right, I agree.
so maybe we can get a sign there.
There's plenty of gas stations that have one way in and one way out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Anything for traffic?
well, the truck staging area sounded like a good idea from Lou. And what he's
Yeah,
saying,
that's actually very easy.
okay,
The fuel tanker parks over the fuel tanks in the back. And that's bigger than any truck that's gonna come in for any of the other uses. So that's
Yeah.
what truck is about.
And right now.
period, right?
the fuel-
That's the place.
That's it.
The fuel
That's the only
tanker,
place.
that's where it stages. We can just designate a staging area, and obviously we can limit deliveries during off-peak
And the
hours.
owner is here, so he'll know where to have all the
Because the tanker truck is sometimes in the front of the building, and strangely enough, sometimes in front of the pumps. I mean, it's really weird.
They're not here.
So, well, there's been some weird deliveries here, so.
Yeah.
So back to previous, this is going back a number of years. We replaced the pumps probably 7 or 8 years ago, where the tanks used to be kind of where the handicap spaces are. So you might be thinking of that, where the tanker used to stage in this area,
Mhm.
kind of.
Yeah.
I remember.
You just have to cut off parking
Right.
spots to
So then,
rebuild.
from a safety perspective, we moved it to the back, so that wouldn't be an issue. Now, I believe the tanker stays behind.
I mean, would you use that same area to deliver Dunkin' Donuts supplies?
That's what I was-
Yeah, I think that's what.
All saying they shall, so.
They shall.
They shall.
And the other thing I just want to point out, there are oversized parking spaces which could handle box truck deliveries, things like that, which are not really designated. As far as the left-hand side, so.
They're never.
Over here.
Yeah, so there's really long 40-foot parking stalls there that box trucks can.
And employees are gonna be remote northwest corner. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And where is Jiffy Lube gonna get their deliveries?
So we're gonna use a staging area that's in the drive. Really, this area is really the least utilized area of the whole site. And even if this area was blocked, I mean, we're really blocking employee parking spaces. And then if there was a car that wanted to access Jiffy Lube, you see the tanker or loading or truck parked there, you have the ability to circulate around the other direction. So basically, the tanker currently stages in that drive aisle behind the building, and that's where the tractor trailer for the Dunkin' would also stage, and we can make sure they're aware of that.
And the Jiffy Lube truck will probably have to be close to the building as well.
Yeah, I believe Jiffy Lube uses box trucks, so I think we could probably use the spaces.
Well, I don't think so.
Oil.
Oil, you would pull off typically in this area to the first payment. They come at hours that we're not busy, and offload, and they come every other week, so it's every 14 days. The filters and those other guys are also in the box truck. We don't have any long tankers or trailer deliveries, and we'd be happy to have him stage where we prefer, but I would imagine, I envisioned that he would use one of those longer
In the
parking
back,
spots.
in the back.
Park there and bring stuff over. but-
Who knows why Dunkin' Donuts has a tractor trailer for.
There's a lot of zones, right?
Yeah.
And those deliveries, the filter guys once a week, so once every 7 days. And oil and waste oil is typically once every 14.
That's because it multiplied by 6, Rich. That's how many stores are around.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, anybody else for traffic? Traffic? Rich, Steve, Tim?
Nope, all good.
I'm set, thank you.
I'm sorry, Steve.
I said I'm set, thank you.
Okay, good. Janine, let's check with public one more time.
Let's see. Buried from the paper.
Okay, we'll close it to the public. And I guess we'll resume for now. And we're going to come back and give us some more information.
We'll come back and give you some more information. I also have John, who will be testifying, get to testify here, planning testimony, until the next meeting, this 10 o'clock. So
Yes, okay, yeah.
That's fine.
Uh-huh.
My couple of things, one would be, when is the next meeting?
That's what we're going to do next.
And also notice.
So let's look at our schedule and see. We have Goldman scheduled for the 6th.
And then Alfieri for the 13th. Now, we all know that Alfieri may not come, but Goldman probably shouldn't be that long. We should probably hear them first and then with the whole planning board. I mean, Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Both Board of Adjustment, but the committee can sit on Goldman.
Okay, then we have to keep it first.
And then be dismissed. But if you do this one, I really don't think Goldman.
Okay,
Not that complicated.
okay. Would you be ready to come back on the 6th?
Yes.
The 13th, I mean, because again, it is Alfieri, but.
We might be able to get we might get a vacation day.
Hey, can I ask a silly question? What more do we have to hear from this applicant? What else are we waiting for? What?
And another witness.
And the planning testimony and the lobby layout.
Yeah. We're gonna look at again.
So we're looking for traffic flow, sign, one side of the way with. And the whole signage.
Yeah, the signage.
And then. The letter says.
Yeah. Right.
All right, so just to sum up, we're gonna come back with the layout for the waiting area, the traffic circulation signage and signage package for that. We'll also do the signage, give you these are rendering what the signage is gonna look like, so you have a question and deal with that. No. Good answer. Good answer. It's funny, it's on my list, but it's good answer.
So for October 6th?
For October 6th, then we'll get our items in the 26th of September.
Yeah, I mean, since that's not gonna be the paper, it's only gonna be before, for the.
No, the plans,
So that the public can view it and they
Right.
can record it, so.
Yeah. I didn't think
it's in the statute, so we'll carry it without additional notices to October 6th at 7 PM. At this meeting room and on Zoom.
Just two questions. One, Mr. Hill, you were virtually, if it's not, really able to be here from Texas, but if it's not, we accept him to be virtually for that.
Absolutely. He's already been sworn.
Thank you. Secondly, I'd like
And he should participate because there may be an operational question and we wouldn't want that to, right.
we fully expect him to have him available. Hopefully he'll be here, but if he's not, for whatever reason, I just wanted to make sure we're okay with the virtually.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
And secondly, both the boards here tonight, board on the internet as well. We thank you for your contact, for positive application, and we look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we've gone over what we're going to do on the 6th and also on the 13th. And we'll keep our fingers crossed, see if they show on the 13th. If not, we got vacation. We got vacation. All right. Anything else that anybody has to talk about? Any of the board members?
Authorization is on the day, so if you wish to.
Plan endorsement?
Plan endorsement?
We already did that, it's passed on to the.
Township committee.
Yes.
Township committee.
The only thing we have still to is after the 18th.
Yes.
Rich, what we are working,
Back to us.
yeah, what we are, that's right, we're working, or
We're
Frank.
debating the plan endorsements.
No, that you did months ago. Actually, you gave your MSA to the township committee. The township committee submitted it to the plan, Office of Planning Advocacy, maybe as far back as
Good night.
January.
Night, guys.
Okay. What you were then considering and working on, and it's very
Were we
important.
just evaluating
Modifications to Frank's report.
No, what you're talking about with Frank about that is the constraints and analysis section, which is a post-MSA discussion.
okay.
And it's basically, he's trying to tell, Frank can talk to you more, but he's trying to tell you where the reports by the state agencies, they want you to look at these constraints analysis. In doing that, there's certain steps that they'll be asking you to do, perhaps by plan implementation agenda. You don't have to take an action on it now. He's giving you an update about it. There will be future plan implementation agenda outline. What he's also working on, and you're going to work on, and Paul's working on, is the actual AT&T property new zone and master plan amendment. And Paul's trying to develop new bulk standards that reflect the reality of one big property and potential multiple uses. But with that, we need some time on, and that would probably be up to the chair, but probably October or whenever.
Looks like it might be the 13th.
I don't
We'll
know.
keep that in mind.
I'll defer to Paul. It's pretty complicated.
I know it is. I know. So if you're not ready,
Giving that. With respect to health years,
yes.
it's been an awful long time since they submitted, an awful long time since it's pretty. I don't know if it's appropriate, we should tell, come back with some revised plans to address some of those comments before they come to the board. Could have been 2.5 the last year and a half.
Yes.
Yeah.
2020.
I think that's a good idea, Paul, especially since the review reports were done and they could do it. I don't know, I think maybe what they're doing is working with Bridgewater, but I have no,
Sure they are.
I have no idea what the
Yeah, that's
status
the
is.
issue right now.
Remember how Bridgewater said to them, tell us how you're gonna access through the Bridgewater
Right. They're
Road.
making them go to the zoning board, I believe.
Okay, and so maybe and that would be good to be done first, rather than before you, to tell you the truth. So, but they don't necessarily.
And I understand that,
But I like the
They're
idea.
gonna come back here, but I think it's come back here with
Right,
new documents.
right. They got extensive review reports. They can revise their plan for Bedminster's review reports.
Mhm.
That's a good thing to do. I don't even know if October 13th is realistic for them, so. Carol, you already know they're at the zoning board there?
I believe so. I don't know if it's been, tabled yet. I know that it was somewhat on the agenda somewhere, and I don't know exactly where. And it's the access, driveway. That's the whole issue because part of it's on Bridgewater. Yeah,
Turn it to their own way.
so. So that's it. So you probably will not be ready. Will you be ready for October 13th if we don't have Alifera?
Yeah.
That's not really, huh?
Which October 13th?
2022.
Yeah, okay, I got the answer. I understand.
I will make the effort.
Well, I mean, it might be an opening that we
Yeah,
have time.
maybe.
That's the only thing I'm saying. That's
Yeah, and
it.
maybe it's just coming up with the general framework with some ideas, and then we can start
We can start talking about it.
destroying those.
Yeah, right.
Anything on the November schedule?
November? No, not
The
yet.
only other application that came in, was, incomplete, Lang Fahey, so we haven't gotten anything back yet from them, so. Yeah, really doesn't work.
So, yeah, so we'll have time. So we may need to, we might have AT&T to talk about on the 13th too. So we'll see how it goes. For now, we're set for the 6th. Yeah. Okey-doke. We got, what?
Motion to
A
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is that a question or a statement?
Hey, Frank, are you watching the sunrise right now?
I will. You want my prescription now?
Isn't he in Spain?
Almost, yeah, you're getting